call this meeting to order.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Parton, Vice Mayor Gore, Councilor Joyner,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Denton,
Here.
Councilor Pelham, Councilor Holloway.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have,
You got to read the certification.
The clerk to read it. The clerk.
do we have to have a motion to go into close?
No.
Yes. Is there a motion?
I move.
Say, is there a motion to come into close?
I move that we go in closed session
You have to read the motion.
pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A I to discuss and consider personnel matters, including board and commission appointments, Hopewell Redevelopment and Housing Authority, Board of Zoning Appeals, Economic Development Authority, Planning Commission, Healthy Families, Department of Social Services, District 19, Recreation and Parks, Keep Hopewell Beautiful, Community Policy and Management Team, Historic Preservation Committee, Architectural Review Board, the assignment and performance of specific appointees and employees of City Council, City Attorney applicants, and Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A30. Discussion of the award of public contract involving expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offerers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, and to the extent such discussion will be aided thereby. Procurement of real estate in Hopewell.
So move.
Is there a second?
A second.
Is there a second?
Second.
I hear a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore, Councilor Denton,
Yes.
Councilor Pelham, Councilor Holloway,
Yes.
Councilor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Motion to come out of closed meeting.
So moved.
All right. Motion's been made by Counselor Denton and seconded by Counselor Holloway. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Councilor Harris. Mayor Parton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore.
Yes.
Councilor Denton.
Yes.
Councilor Pelham.
Yeah.
Councilor Holloway. Councilor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 6-0.
Okay. Certification, please.
Certification pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712D, where only public business matters, 1, lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and 2, identified in the closed meeting, motion discussed in closed meeting. Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
Yes.
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway, Councilor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. Do I have a motion to appoint Shantae Wheeler to the Social Services Advisory Board, Violet Taylor to the Hopewell Prince George Healthy Families Advisory Board, Chris Lofstrom to Keep Hopewell Beautiful, Jennifer Lowry to Keep Hopewell Beautiful, and Ziana Richardson to the Recreation Commission?
So moved.
Right. Motion's been made by Councilor Joyner and seconded by Vice Mayor Gore. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
Yes.
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway, Councilor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. All right, we're going to move into our work session. Our first one is for the zoning text amendment. Mr. Ward.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Tonight's first work session is a zoning amendment request to add municipal facility as an allowable use to the C1 district. and subsequently to add a definition for municipal facility to Article 1 of the zoning ordinance.
Oh, thank you.
The applicant for this request is the city of Hopewell. The C1 district is our conservation district, and primarily there's two areas of the city that are zone C1. Both areas are located in Ward 2. C1 currently allows municipal utility, but not municipal facility. And the request, of course, is to add municipal facility to C1. All public notice was put in the newspaper for the public hearing that was held at Planning Commission. So just as a reminder, when doing a zoning text amendment, if you're adding an allowable use to a district, it is permitted throughout the entire district. And it's not restricted to any particular parcel. The current uses in C1 in these two areas here that are circled yellow, currently they are zone C1 and they have an active wastewater treatment facility on the northeast location. And then in the southern location, there's a decommissioned wastewater treatment facility and a decommissioned municipal landfill. The two districts, again, they already have municipal utilities at these locations, but municipal facility is not a permitted use. These two areas are mostly brownfields with very limited redevelopment potential, and any and all vegetative buffer that's currently under conservation will be preserved. Of course, large portions of these two areas of the city are already designated resource management, resource protection, and flood zone areas. We are requesting that City Council make the approval to add municipal facilities to Section A of Article 15B, Conservation District, as an allowable use, and to amend Article 1 to include the definition. The reason for this request comes out of the city's desire to build a new burn building with the fire department. It would be at the southern location here shown circled in yellow. And so that's why we are adding municipal facility because it would not qualify under a municipal utility. I'm available for any questions. Of course, this is a work session, so not asking for any action this evening. We'll come back to you for public hearing at a later date.
Question for you. While we're going through and doing this, so that way we can, add this use in there.
Yes,
is
sir.
there anything that we can do also at the same time of doing this to, I guess, make these districts more compatible for other things, like maybe blending them in with like the industrial, so that it could, I guess I don't know if it would consider be like a qualified like project that they could go in and like take some of those decommissioned wastewater plants out and put something new in there.
I did do some research on why these were zone C1 to begin with, and unfortunately, the documentation really is not there.
Okay.
From when these were zoned C1. I have a suspicion that they were zoned that way because of some sort of requirement with DEQ. These are brownfield locations. They're municipal, both active and decommissioned public utilities there. Especially with the decommissioned landfill, that's still being actively monitored. So the redevelopment potential of either one of these locations is pretty much non-existent. I can certainly check into it, but I would want to speak with DEQ first before we made any moves to change the C1.
Only reason I was just asking if there was certain language that we could add into maybe some of the zoning ordinances that could make it more competitive for brownfields grants or various types of redevelopment grants like that. I mean, of course, it's not my bailiwick.
Sure.
But I'm just thinking, while we're going through this exercise, this might be something, to knock two birds out with one stone.
Let me look into it for you. I'm not comfortable really answering that
Oh,
this
sure,
evening. Essentially, if we were to add something to this, I would have to start again back at the Planning Commission in the public hearing process. So this process would have to start over. if we wanted to add something along with the municipal facilities. That's not to say we couldn't just add something later. That would be in line with what you're asking about.
Okay.
It's not difficult to do, but I would be more comfortable to speak with DEQ and try to get some more history on why this is C1 to begin with.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Are there any other questions for Mr. Ward? Okay. Seeing no lights. Work session number 2.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
With this is for the, what do you call it, like the burn building, is this what this is? Can we do a motion to waive the rules and accept this? I mean, it's something that's being requested from the city, and something that we had agreed on from the beginning. And I think we've done this.
I think there's a public hearing requirement.
There is state law requires I come back to you for a public hearing at
For
City
the public
Council.
hearing portion?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we're prepared to do that at one of your January meetings, so in just a few weeks.
Certainly, thank you.
Does it require 2 readings or just 1 reading?
If 5 or more of you agree to approve, it can be approved on the first reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. The second work session item this evening is a conditional use permit request to construct a single-family dwelling on a non-conforming lot. This relates to parcel 0131210 located on Atlantic Street. The applicant is SRB Investors LLC, and the property in question is located in Ward 3. It's zoned R2 residential medium density. And again, the request is to construct this single-family dwelling. On the left is a general location of this particular property, and on the right is a zoomed-in aerial image of the property in question. The boundary lines, as shown in this in the image on the right, is not up to date because the applicant has gone through an administrative re-subdivision, so he actually owns the 2 perpendicular parcels at the rear of the one highlighted in blue, and those were all consolidated into one. So now he actually owns the parcel with the house that's currently on the corner, and then the adjacent parcel in blue is the one in question for this evening. But again, the 2 perpendicular lots behind it have been combined into the 2 parcels in the front. So he went from 4 down to 2. Just wanted to note that for clarification's sake. The particular lot in question, which is parcel 0131210, again is zoned R2, and the minimum lot size and standard for R2 lots is 75 feet wide and 7,500 square feet. This particular parcel is only 60 feet wide, but does meet the 7,500 square foot requirement. So the nonconformity with this particular parcel is in the width. The image on the right is an elevation of the proposed structure, the front elevation, Cape Cod style house. It's 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,040 square feet. Again, elevations on the sides. And the proposed dwelling is larger than the average single-family dwelling within that area. And that average size is 1,267 square feet. This particular house, the applicant's proposing vinyl siding, which is consistent with the other homes in the neighborhood. And Cape Cod style is pretty common in Hopewell. We don't normally see these with CUP applications, so it's nice to see a Cape Cod style. And it'll fit nicely into the rest of the neighborhood. The application is consistent with the 7 CUP approval criteria as well as the comprehensive plan. Staff recommends approval of this application with the following conditions. The single-family dwelling will have 12-inch minimum eaves. The lot will have minimum coverage of 20% tree canopy at full maturity. A driveway of asphalt or concrete will be installed. The foundation will have brick or stone on all four sides, along with foundation plantings. And essentially, the house that will be constructed will be in substantial conformance with these house plans as presented and were presented to Planning Commission and approved on November 14th with any modifications. Planning Commission stuck with staff's recommendations. They didn't add or detract any. They're the same. And again, work session, not asking for any action this evening, but I am available for questions.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Ward? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to roll into our regular city council meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Parton,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Here.
Counselor Joyner,
Here.
Counselor Harris,
Here.
Counselor Denton,
Here.
Counselor Pelham,
Here.
Counselor Holloway. You have a quorum.
Okay. At this time, is there a motion to adopt? Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. At this time, we'll have the prayer done by Pastor Hart, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag by Counselor Denton. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, on this evening, we have gathered together to do business for the city and its people. Lord, we ask that you would bless those that's in charge, that you would move mightily, that they would make the right decisions that would bless the city and the people. In your precious Son's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, is there a motion to adopt the regular meeting agenda? Okay. Motion's made by Counselor Pelham and seconded, I think, by Counselor Joyner. All right. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. Can I make a amendment to change the order of information presentations to the Pittsburgh Symphony to be first in front of the fire department?
Yeah. So you just want to amend the agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you okay with that, Counselor Joyner?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Counselor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Counselor Joyner and seconded by Counselor Pelham. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Counselor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Moving on to information and presentation. At this time, at this time, I'd like to ask all members from the Petersburg Symphony Orchestra to please come up, and then also any former members of City Council in the audience that helped with this partnership, along with current City Council members. Yeah.
Or we can stay in the front, right?
Yeah.
I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the Petersburg Symphony. Every year they come to grant the citizens one night of refreshing music to our souls. Normally it was Christmas, this year's gonna be the spring And I started a partnership 10 years ago. And as a result, they wanted to thank us for our support of them. And of course, we want to thank them for supporting us as well. Mr. Lewis, Dr. Lewis is the president of the Petersburg Symphony. You may space a word if you wish and introduce the young ladies and young men.
Actually, I don't know them all. Good evening. I
Can
just,
you get to the mic so the
Sure.
TV can hear you?
can I actually read what I wrote?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll pull this down. So, dear members of the Hopewell City Council and residents of Hopewell, season's greetings to all of you. I'm Dr. Kenneth W. Lewis, a resident of Petersburg, Virginia, and the current president of the Petersburg Symphony Orchestra, PSO. And I'm here today to extend my heartfelt gratitude for your unwavering support for our orchestra over these last 10 years. 10 years ago, in 2014, your esteemed resident, the late Mrs. Mary Adams, approached this city council seeking financial assistance for the PSO to host a special annual concert at the historic Beacon Theater. Thanks to your generosity and her tenacity, you contributed $4,000 that year, and you have continued this support annually. As a result, we have been able to present a wonderful concert performance at the Beacon Theater every March. Your financial contributions have been invaluable, but even more so has been your moral support from the community, your enthusiastic applause, and your warm hospitality that has made us feel truly welcomed in our city and our sister city of Hopewell. Each year, I look forward to opening our concert with greetings that celebrate our partnership and recognize two remarkable Hopewell citizens, the late Mrs. Mary D. Adams and her sister, Ms. Virginia Dyerdor. Both have been steadfast patrons of the PSO and dear friends to me. I also fondly recall our performance at Grant's headquarters at City Point Appomattox Manor in August 2012, where we presented Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture alongside the then Fort Lee 392nd Army Band with live cannon detachment. And I don't know how many of you were here then for that, but it was quite the afternoon that you would hear live cannons fired and a symphony playing. Our holiday concert that we just had, Handel's Messiah, drew 800 people to the Petersburg High School auditorium this past Sunday, December the 8th, and we're excited to announce our tentative upcoming performance at the Beacon Theater on Sunday afternoon, March the 9th, 4 p.m., where we will present Kicked Back Classics, and we hope that you all will attend. We're deeply grateful for your continued support, which allows us to secure the legacy of Dr. Gatlin's PSO, to sustain the dream of Dr. Gatlin's PSO, to share the excitement of Dr. Gatlin's PSO's performances, and to support the wonderful sound of music that enriches our community. Thank you again, once again, for your generosity and belief in our mission, and we look forward to continuing this wonderful partnership with the city of Hopewell, Virginia. Warm regards, Kenneth W. Lewis, PhD, President, Petersburg Symphony Orchestra. And with the assistance of of the mayor, all right, sir.
Thank you.
And by the way, Fang is a little 12-pound Chihuahua, and he and I enjoy your river walk on occasion. I was the one who sent him a letter indicating to cut a tree down that had fallen over the steps that goes down. There are folk in this city that I know or knew, the Gilliams who lived on Maplethorpe, and of course the Harris family, Curtis Harris. So, and my two newest friends, Miss Mary Adams, the late Miss Mary Adams, and her wonderful sister, Virginia Dyerdor. They've been great supporters of the Petersburg Symphony Orchestra, and we thank you for that. And these are some certificates that simply say thank you for your support of the Petersburg Symphony during your tenure as a Hopewell City Council member. There are many names on here, and so I don't apologize for not knowing. I just didn't know all that was going to happen. But they're here, and however your protocol dictates that we hand them out, I'm right at your side. And we thank you for your serving on the Wilcox Watershed Conservancy.
And I also want to say something else that they do that probably doesn't get highlighted enough is the fact that you guys actually allow high schoolers
Yes.
to come in and be
Yeah.
a part of the performances. And my very first one, I got to see some Hopewell High School orchestra members or students participate, and you would have thought they were professionals.
That's right.
On there.
That's right.
So yes, we have certificates for our current members on City Council, and then also for members that have helped out with organizing, like these wonderful citizens over here.
So
yeah.
I'll give them to you. And how do you want to proceed?
Yeah.
Wayne is the only prior city council member who's come tonight to receive a certificate, but we'll get the other ones and the
Yeah.
other members as well. He was one of the initial votes.
Good to see you again.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll have those to you guys soon.
And then these people spoke 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Would all of you raise your hands, the ones who spoke 10 years ago? And now, thank you. Because I want to give recognition to the people that created a presentation to give 10 years ago. And I think because of their heartfelt presentation, the council voted unanimously 10 years ago. It's already been 10 years. So the people that were here speaking, and we have one symphony orchestra member, Scott, he plays the viola. Yes.
And I was,
I was here when, in 2014, when we began. Here,
Thank you.
when you all
So
let
the
us.
people that were here, raise your hands
Yes.
that spoke.
Which year did you guys do Jurassic Park?
It was one of those years. You know what, I'm gonna go back and tell the board that. We'll pull that one up again and maybe do it in 2026.
So can I get everybody coming together a little bit closer so we can get a group photo?
Can you go over here to this
Yeah.
side?
Right here.
Yeah, we get, Ms. Coleman, you can come in the center. Can we get a couple people over here, if you don't mind, the downside course?
I need you guys to, become a little bit more friendlier.
Be the center.
Is the man wide enough?
I think we got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Mayor Martin.
Yes.
There's
Thank you, Hopewell. We try to be good stewards of the money that you give us.
former councilors do.
Please always come out to support the
Yeah, but there's only like
Symphony
two
Orchestra, and we thank you for the big crowd that you all bring to the Beacon Theater when we come here. Okay. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our second presentation. Mr. Rupert with the fire department.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, I appreciate the opportunity tonight to give you a presentation on our staffing situation at the fire department. You've received a number of memos over the last 2 months indicating some of the challenges that we have at the fire department right now. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity in consultation with the city manager to give you an update tonight on where we are. I'm going to go through kind of fast. I know I have 10 minutes here, so I'm going to try to talk about a lot of things in a short period of time. First, I'd like to just a quick reminder of what our normal staffing is. So we have 48 full-time positions, basically 3 shifts of 16 is our operational staff. Currently, we have 12 vacancies, but operationally we're down 15, which is almost an entire shift, due to the fact that 3 of our positions are currently in rookie school, and they won't complete that until the end of January. On a normal day, our minimum staffing is 13, which is 8 people at Station 1, 1 battalion chief, an engine with 1 captain and 2 firefighters, a medic with 1 medic and a firefighter, and then a quint and a third medic or a second medic that's cross-staffed. So depending on which kind of call we get first, they'll either be on the quint or they'll get on the ambulance, depending on the order of the calls. At Station 2, we have a total of 5 folks. We have an engine that's staffed with 3, a captain and 2 firefighters, and then a medic that has a medic and a firefighter. I presented to you before in the past at our budgets the challenges that we have on a regular day, and the fact that 13 is actually a deficit when it comes to national standards. Typically a regular house fire, not an apartment complex, not an industrial fire, but just a regular structure fire, it should have a complement of 16 firefighters arriving on the scene. We have 13 on a daily basis, and that includes our medics. So that includes medics that have limited firefighter training and can do limited things at the scene of a fire. So that's normal operations, regular day to day. I sent you a memo. I sent a memo to the city manager that she passed on to you, dated September 23rd. With the reduction in our staffing due to people leaving and whatever the case, a number of different things, and being down so far, we have a number of challenges when it comes to maintaining our minimum staffing. So in the fire department, we do a thing called drafting. And so if you're at work and the following day is short, you're drafted to stay, which means that you don't have a choice. You have to stay. And if you don't stay, then you're disciplined. And that, there's not going to be too many of those, and you won't be an employee anymore. And so you can imagine that anybody that's drafted is usually not a happy employee because they have things to do at home with their family, whatever else other obligations they have. And if they're drafted, that means that they're being forced to stay there against their will. And so drafting is not something that we try to avoid, but something that unfortunately we have to do quite often. It was getting to a point right before this memo that looking ahead and forecasting where we were going to be, we recognized the fact that there would actually be days that due to the number of overtime staff that was already working on a day, we wouldn't even have enough people to draft to fill the following shift. And so we were really at a very bad situation when it came to the number of drafts that were occurring and really getting to a point where we're wearing out our staff. You can understand when you're working 24 hours, then you're off for 48. If you're drafted, then you're working for 48 hours and you're off for 24, only to come back for another 24 the following day. And so with our call volume, that can quickly become unsustainable. And so we looked at our staffing levels, and I can tell you as a fire chief, especially looking at the numbers that we just discussed about us being already at a deficit on a regular day, the last thing I want to do is allow less than 13 to work on a daily basis. However, we were at a place that I knew if we didn't make a significant change very soon, then we would probably also lose people to the fact that they just didn't want to continue this type of tempo on working overtime. And so, hence the memo that I sent out, allowing us to go to 11 at certain days. Now, we always put out for voluntary overtime and try to get to our minimum staffing of 13. But it also doesn't force us to draft people until we got to the number 11. And that would mean that we would drop a person off of our 2 ambulances. Now, there is an alternative to that, which a number of fire chiefs could certainly suggest, and they could argue that point before you, which would be to brown something out, what we call brown something out, and basically take something out of service. We could have browned out an ambulance, so to speak. That would have been the first thing that we would have been able to do. We really can't brown out an engine. We're already short, only have 2 engines on a daily basis. So the only thing that we could really brown out would be an ambulance. And what that would do is that would have an impact on our citizens. And the thing that I want you all to understand tonight is that we have done the best that we can do to make sure that the struggles that we're having internally in the fire department don't impact the service delivery to the citizens of Hopewell. And so we made the choice, rather than browning something out, rather than taking an ambulance out of service to keep our engine staffed at our 3, to take a staff member off of each of those engines. Now, I can tell you that means, people would argue that there's safety concerns with that, and certainly there are. And that's why we took a number of things that in that memo that were outlined in that memo to ensure the safety of our folks. One of those things is if we have a working fire, we immediately call for a mutual aid engine into the city to assist our firefighters. The other thing that we did is we took a number of days and did some training with each of our shifts to practice the change in operations that we needed to do in order to be able to operate at 11 rather than 13. And coming out of those days of training, my battalion staff and officer staff felt confident that our people could do what they needed to do, even though it meant that putting out a fire would be more challenging for our folks during this period of time. On the next slide here, it's kind of hard to read, but you can see in the last 6 months, we've worked 7,925 hours of overtime. 4,515 of those hours were from September 23rd, the date of the memo, until today. Also in the box below, you're going to see that we have filled 424 overtime shifts. That's a 24-hour shift, 424 overtime shifts in that period of time in the last 6 months. 93 of those were drafts. So 93 times we forced an employee to stay at work that they did not want to stay at work. Okay, and then 52 shifts were the number of shifts that we were able to avoid drafting someone by implementing this process where we dropped to 11 instead of remaining at 13. So that just gives you an idea of some of the numbers. At the same time, a month later, I sent you another memo regarding the struggles that we were having in EMS. You may or may not be aware that the city of Hopewell used to have the Hopewell Emergency Crew. The Hopewell Emergency Crew used to be the primary EMS agency in the city. They provided all of the EMS for the city for a long period of time. In the late 90s, they started to drop off when it came to the number of volunteers and volunteer hours, and the fire department started picking up some of that slack. When I came on in the early 2000s, we were actually carrying the lion's share of the weight of that call volume, even though it was significantly less than it is today. They actually hired some staff to come in and staff ambulances, and so the chart that you see there, you see the blue is the number of calls that the emergency crew ran, and then you see the red, the number of calls that the fire department ran. You can see since 2017 is when that paid crew at the emergency crew went away, and then they finally closed completely in 2022. You can also see over that period of time that our call volume has essentially doubled. We've essentially doubled the number of calls that EMS calls that are being responded to in the city of Hopewell. And in that time, we have not really received the amount of resources that we need to basically take on an entirely new task. That has slowly become ours over the course of the last 20 years or so. And of course, now with the emergency crew folding completely, we are the only EMS agency answering 911 calls here in the city.
Chief Rupert, we have Councilor Holloway that would like to ask a question.
Sure.
So that's about 12 calls a day for the EMS. Do you have the numbers for the engines?
Yeah, I don't have those in front of me, but I can tell you that EMS is about 82% of what we do. So if you do that math, I can't do that quick in my head, but that will give you the balance of that is the number of fire and other calls that we run on a daily basis.
Then you were, go back to the last slide, there was something that I wanted to ask about. Oh, these out, that 7,900, that says that's the overtime just for the period of 6 months?
Yes, sir. So from June 1 until today, well, actually, I think this was pulled on this 4th of December, these numbers. That's 79.25, and then 45.15, basically half of that has occurred since the memo that you received in September.
I don't know how much they get, I don't remember how much they get paid an hour, but it seems like their overtime would compensate for maybe a couple of new hires.
Right. So, well, the challenge that we're currently having, which I was going to get to in just a minute, is that in fact is hiring, is a huge challenge for us. Getting people in the door to do the job, and especially when it comes to EMS.
Would that be specifically for pay, or what would be your professional opinion as to why that is?
There's a number of reasons, but if you don't mind, I'm really going to hit your points, your question 100% in the rest of the presentation.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. So our regular operations when it comes to EMS on a daily basis, we call it 2.5 ambulances. Essentially, there's 3 ambulances, but the one is cross-staffed with the Quint. So that means that if there's a fire call, then that ambulance is not in service. And we also field both of our engines are advanced life support. One clarification, the state's definition of advanced life support is EMT enhanced or EMT advanced. Our definition in the fire department is basically an intermediate or paramedic because it's a higher level of care. And so that's what we have provided for many years, and that's what we continue to try to provide the best that we can. Because, however, of our reduction, so on a normal day, our normal operations, we really need 6 advanced life support providers on a shift, in addition to the captains who are advanced life support providers, with a total of 18 in order to really maintain all 3 of these ambulances as advanced life support, which is really the standard of care today. We're down to 11 ALS providers. That's a 7 provider deficit. And we also allow our medic, our third out medic, to drop to EMT advanced or EMT enhanced on some days when staffing doesn't allow us to have a intermediate or paramedic on that ambulance. And so the short message is it is starting to impact our operations. It's starting to impact service delivery. We're trying to minimize that as much as possible, but at the end of the day, it's beginning to make an impact. The big issue that we have, going back to Councilor Holloway's question, is that 82%, as I said, of our call volume is EMS. And so the EMS providers are really carrying the lion's share of the call volume that we have. When we started the EMS only program, we did so on the same schedule as our firefighters are on, 24/48. The problem with that is that they're carrying the majority of the load of that call volume, and they're getting really it's becoming unsustainable with that schedule, especially if they have to work an overtime shift. Now there's 48 hours of them running the lion's share of the calls, and they're basically getting burnt out. And we've had some leave due to that burnout. And so we've been trying to recruit. We've recruited in the last 6 months. As we have recruited, we have gotten 1 applicant, and that applicant did not pass our testing process. And so we knew we had to do something drastic. We are second lowest paid in the region. And we're not offering anything that anybody else isn't. And I'll be honest with you, we're not the only ones looking for ALS providers. Prince George is looking for ALS providers. Chesterfield is looking for ALS providers. Everybody is. There's a shortage of ALS providers that are willing to work. And so I knew that we had to offer something that these other localities are not offering in order for us to be able to in order to get people in. And so at one of our staff meetings, it was suggested that we change the medics to a 24/72 schedule, which gives them an extra day break in between their work days and allows them to have a more sustainable schedule for them, and allows there to be a little bit more time for them to recoup before they come back to work. This is a very sought after schedule. There are very few localities in the area that offer that. Currently in the Tri-Cities area, there's only one, and they are the lowest paid. They're the only ones paid lower than we are that offer that schedule. And so this is a schedule that is sought after. And so our thought process was that we would certainly get some applications if we offer that schedule. Now the problem, a couple challenges with that schedule, mainly being that we would need to add a couple positions in order to be able to do that, because we're essentially going to have to add a shift to be able to do that. In concert with having the conversation with the city manager, she wanted me to delay request of those additional positions until the budget season, which makes sense to me. But I explained to her my concern that I cannot advertise and really get anybody in unless I start to move in that direction. And so after having given you guys the memo, we went ahead and advertised, and in 2 weeks' time, we had 7 applications. Today, I made 3 offers, and those offers were accepted, primarily based on that schedule. And so we also have a couple other applications that we have hoped for. So we're moving in the right direction, but it certainly is continuing to be a challenge for us. Being that we were in the situation we were in, we also decided to do a significant advertisement. We had an idea to do a same-day interview and hiring open house. We advertised through all the social media avenues, not just like regular posts, but actually paid advertisement, which is something that we hadn't done before. We even put billboards out on 95. We really did a huge push. Had a lot of staff there that day in order to do interviews on site that day. It was a big lift for the department. However, it has paid dividends. So we spoke to about 40 people throughout that day. We interviewed, I think, over 15. I was able to offer 3 last week that have accepted, and then, like I said, 3 ALS providers today, and then one more firefighter. So we're up to 7 offers that have been accepted thus far. So we're heading in the right direction. We're moving in the right direction, and I hope that in the February timeframe we're going to start to come out of this situation that we're in. In order for us to be successful going forward, though, I think it's very important that we utilize the results of the class and comp study to look at the pay disparity that we're facing between us and the jurisdictions around us. I understand that we're not going to be able to be competitive with a Chesterfield County or a Henrico. I certainly understand that we're not going to be able to be at the same pay as them, and I don't expect that. At the same time, I also can't expect a captain to be paid less here than a firefighter starts in the jurisdiction next door. That's just that disparity is just way too wide, and that's where we currently are. ALS incentives are really important, as you can see, when it comes to the medical profession. These folks are really short, and one of the things that a lot of the jurisdictions are doing is they're giving additional incentives for those who are advanced life support providers. I'll also be asking in our budget this year for a career development to be approved. That's something else that's very important for our ALS providers. We have a very small EMS staff, and so they don't have that career progression that the fireside does. And so for them, it's very important to have a career development plan that gives them a path forward as far as being able to increase their pay and their capabilities for the city. And that is the end of my presentation. Any questions that you may have?
Okay. Councilor Holloway?
Do you already have, looking at a pay increase, do you have any numbers as to what it would cost the city yearly if everybody in the department had a set increase, like 3% or 5%, or do you have anything already there?
We had done some preliminary stuff. I don't have that in front of me here tonight to be able to share with you. We had certainly done some preliminary calculations on some raises, but honestly, I think that the class and comp study is really going to tell the story. I think that the recommendations that Evergreen provides, I would think, would probably be more than adequate to give you options as far as what it is, the cost would be, and what it is that we can do.
About how far is that out?
I think January.
Beginning of January, we should receive some feedback.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Counselor Pelham?
My annual question, would it be cheaper for us to purchase more ambulances to send people out instead of sending out that big truck when it's not a fire, but it's an emergency actually? Could you send a fire truck with every call, correct?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
That
So, no. So, any call that's not, a critical call, like say, for instance, a bad trauma, like a bad car accident, or a shooting, or a cardiac arrest. Those are the calls that have a fire truck go as well, and that's really because of manpower. In order to be able to.
That's what I'm saying. So what does the fire truck do for a cardiac patient? It has the ALS person on the truck, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So all of our firefighters are trained in EMS. So the baseline is EMT. Our captains, which is on our engine, is a paramedic or an intermediate. Mm-hmm. That's their minimum requirement. So essentially, the same crew that you would have on an ambulance is also on an engine. And so we need that additional assistance. There's only 2 people on an ambulance when it goes out the door. So when you have a cardiac arrest or you have a significant call, it really takes a lot more manpower to be able to handle that. And so we supplement that ambulance with a fire engine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Right. Would it be cheaper to get a car or a truck or SUV than to spend all that money on a big engine to be out there instead of, I've always don't understand why the engine has to go.
So,
it can't be subsidized with some other type of car or something.
Sure, we would love to do that, but it would mean that we'd have to hire more people. So, you have to understand that these are dual role folks. So when they're out there on a fire engine, okay, and they go to that call on a fire engine, they're going on the fire engine because their primary role is a firefighter. Okay, they're going to supplement that ambulance. However, that call may or may not turn into, if it is significantly difficult, then they're going to assist them for a while. Usually the assistance that they needed is, in most cases, is the point where they get them loaded in the back of the ambulance. And then that fire truck is back in service and available for a fire call. And so, they can respond then to a fire. So if we had EMS personnel to a chase car, and certainly there's jurisdictions that do that, but it would require us to hire more folks because we would need EMS people dedicated to doing that so that fire truck can stay in service. Because if we take them off of a fire truck and we put them on something else, then we're taking that fire truck out of service. Does that make sense?
It doesn't, not to me, but anyway, never mind. I got you. Thank you.
Because essentially you're saying if those 2 people, instead of sitting them on that engine, if we had given another vehicle like another EMS van, and those firefighters are on the EMS van, and then a fire starts, they wouldn't already be prepared to go to the fire. They would have to go back to the fire station, get in the engine, and then go.
And I wish I had the numbers for the number of times that we're on a call. When we get a second call, and we have to run to that next call.
I live right there,
so it's it's very frequently that we're on another call when we have to leave that call and go directly to another one. And so if we were in a van, so to speak, we wouldn't have what we need to fight a fire. They'd have to go back to the station and then back to the call. That could be a 10-minute delay in getting to the fire. By that time, the house would be burnt down, honestly, in today's standard.
Counselor Denton? No. Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I saw your light go on.
That's okay. I'm sorry.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Mr. Rupert? Okay. Counselor Joyner.
I guess my question is, we clearly have the staffing shortage. Is it is it solely pay related?
No, I mean, I can't say it's 100% pay related. I can tell you that in the last few months, it's gotten so bad. We've had 4 people in the last few months leave to go back to a blue collar job that they had before they came here.
Okay.
And I understand the challenges that local government has. A plumber, like one of them was a plumber. You know, that plumber that charged you, $700 for a hot water heater, he can't get anybody that can do the job. So he calls his firefighter guy up that used to work for him and offers him a pay raise that in some cases, some of these folks, $20,000 more than we're offering them to come back.
Sure.
And then he's going to pass that cost on to whoever he installs that hot water heater to. Why we know everything is going up.
Yeah.
We, unfortunately, in local government have the challenge of not being able to pass that cost on. And so...
Yeah. Well, it's just say Colonial Heights, all of our surrounding jurisdictions, are they this low in staffing, and is their fire department this low?
Prince George is struggling right now. Petersburg is struggling right now. Colonial Heights is in good shape, but they know that they have, I think, 4 people that I've already told them they're leaving to go to Henrico or another locality that is higher paid.
Okay.
So they know that they're not at that issue yet, but they're like it's on the horizon. They know it's coming.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Chief Rupert, the questions that Councilor Joyner were asking kind of jogged my memory. I remember years ago, Chief Cohane, and it may have been you, it may have been Chief Hunter, also proposed some other things that were helpful. I think there's like a special multiplier for y'all's VRS. I mean, is that something that people are looking at? I know retirement savings is not something a lot of people, unfortunately, take into consideration when they're applying for jobs. But I mean, is that something that we can look at that might?
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why the EMS program that we started, we really anticipated at that time that people would see the opportunity for these providers to retire early at 50, and all that. Unfortunately, a lot of the generation today is a lot more, I don't want to call it short-sighted, but they look at things the now a lot more than they
more
do,
in the moment.
Yes, than out into the future. And so what we thought was going to really help us as far as advertising and creating the EMS positions, which is a good thing, and I think it certainly did help us initially. But the call volume that we have, I think, is what really told the story for us. And just that 12 calls a day, as the council mentioned, is just unsustainable for our folks. And so that's why we're pursuing the change in schedule.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our third presentation for the evening. Mr. Foley with the 2020 audit.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you for having me here this evening. Again, my name is David Foley. I'm a partner with Robinson Farmer Cox Associates, and was a partner in charge of the city's fiscal year audit ended June 30, 2020. And we have completed that audit, so here to present the results of that to you all. Starting in early October, as we were working on finishing the audit, we started having weekly status meetings with the city management. So met with the city manager, city finance director, and also the assistant city manager. And during those meetings, we would discuss the status of where we were on the audit, as well as whatever open items we still needed to be able to complete the audit. So those meetings occurred weekly, all the way up through till where we got the last pieces that we needed to finish the audit, which we did receive the last piece last Thursday. So now we have issued a final draft of the report. So here to go over that with you all. This you have in front of you is the annual comprehensive financial report. And included in the annual report are 3 different reports from us that communicate the results of the audit. The first is in the front of the report on numbered page 6. And this is our independent auditor's report. And in this report is where we state we did perform an audit on the city's financial statements. This talks about management's responsibility for the financial statements, which management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements, and talks about our responsibilities as auditors, which we're to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And then over on the next page, at the top of page 7, is where we issue our opinion on the financial statements. And this year for FY 2020, with all the work that the Robert Bob Group did to get the city's records in order, we were able to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements for 2020. An unmodified opinion means that the city's financial statements have been prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So a clean opinion on the financial statements themselves. The other 2 reports from us are in the back of the report. So if we go all the way back to page 145, this is our report over the city's internal controls over its financial reporting. So while we were able to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements themselves, we still have the material weaknesses noted in the city's internal controls over its financial reporting. So all the internal control issues, that were noted in 18 and 19, those still existed for the city for the 2020 fiscal year. The details of those are further back in the report, but very similar to the findings that we had the previous 2 years. And the theme of these material weaknesses are reconciliations. So, having monthly reconciliations done, in a timely manner, reconciling cash, receivables, utilities, things that should be done on a monthly basis, and to ensure the accuracy of the city's financial statements. So again, very similar to previous years. And then the third report from us is 2 pages over, and this is on the federal compliance opinion, uniform guidance. So anytime a locality expends over $750,000 in federal awards, you have to undergo a single audit. This report is clean. There was no federal award findings or federal compliance issues noted as part of the audit. So those are the 3 reports from us. As we have finished 2020 and move into starting the FY21 audit, I will reach out to the Robert Bob Group to have them start providing us information for FY21. In addition, we will still continue our weekly status meetings with city management. Those seem to be very helpful, so it allows the city to stay abreast on where we are with the audit and what items we still need. So again, now that 2020 is complete, we will turn our attention to 21 to get that audit started. But that's all I have, but be happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Okay. Councilor Joyner?
Yeah, my question has to do with, obviously, the time constraints we're under, and that so much, our bond rating depends upon, on-time clean audit, that kind of thing. Given that you've just finished 2020, what are your expectations? If you were to get everything that you needed, what can we expect average turnaround time for it to be one of our annual audits from this point forward?
So I think it's contingent upon, getting the information
Sure.
that we need.
Of course.
Typical turnaround 60 days.
Okay.
And getting the information, we have to get the information, then we have to go through it and look at it. And
Yeah.
then a lot of times that involves, hey, we need questions or need further
Right.
information. But assuming all that happens, quickly,
60
we're
days.
looking at about 60 days.
Okay.
Counselor Holloway?
So I'm gonna piggyback off of what she said. What takes so long? What usually happens in response when you're requesting for the information? So, you said 60-day turnaround is, of course, much quicker than has been. What has been the holdup?
So again, 60 days. One is that we receive, most all the information. So, and for the previous audits, we received some information so we could get started on, but it wasn't everything. And then once you get the complete set of information, then there's, it takes time to get our questions answered and,
Do you report it back out to council to let us know the information that you're requesting, where it's being held up from particularly?
Do we, or will we?
Will you?
Will, yes, we will. And that was, I think with these weekly meetings with city management, we're able to update the city on, okay, this is where we're at, this is what we've gotten, these are the questions we've gotten back, or this is the questions we've given back, and this is the stuff we're still waiting on. So we would be reporting, weekly.
So is that usually a development of a request over the period of time? Or are you coming in at the beginning and saying this is what we need? So from the beginning, are you asking?
So at the beginning of the audit, we send out a list and say this is all the information that we need. Now that can come back in phases. We can get pieces of it here. A month later, we get another set of information. 2 months later, we may get another set of information. So it just depends on the timing of the information. But we do request this as a list of everything that we need, and ahead of time. And then as we start getting that, again, we work through that information. Sometimes it's complete, sometimes it's not, and then we will reach back out if we have questions or find that we need something else.
I'm most concerned and see, is that information that you're trying to receive from city, or does this entail? Does this entail like the treasurer's office, or is this something that's just, or is it split?
We get information from all over. So it's treasurer's office, it's finance, it's social services, it's CSA, it's school board. We get it from all over.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Counselor Pelham, myself, and then Vice Mayor Gore.
You are city manager, can you answer?
Can I interject for 1 second?
Oh, did you say my name first? I'm sorry.
Do you mind if I interject for 1 second? We're running up on time. I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting.
Okay. There's a motion to extend the meeting. Is it to a certain time or item?
Finish the agenda.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to extend the meeting until we finish the agenda. Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Gore and seconded by Counselor Pelham. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
No.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Counselor Joyner.
No.
Motion passes 5-2.
Okay.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm confused. We knew our material weaknesses coming into our audit from Mr. Ball. everyone knew the weaknesses. We paid him to get the weaknesses straight, I thought. So they did the weaknesses, and as they completed the weaknesses, you telling me they didn't give you the information?
Well, no. They were able to give us the stuff. They went back through the records and were able to provide us sufficient evidence to support what was in the financial statements.
Okay.
So that was a change between 20 and 19. So the opinion on the financial statements was it was a disclaimer for
They were
19.
20. I'm talking
No,
about
for
21.
19
And
and
20.
18.
Okay.
And 20, the opinion on the financial statements is unmodified. But that's just on the financial statements, so that means that the financial statements have been prepared materially correct. But through 2020, the Robert Bob Group didn't even come in till, September or October of 23. So 2020 already happened. So for the fiscal year 2020, all these internal control issues were in place. I mean, they
But
couldn't.
they actually saying, well, they were supposed to come in and correct those
But,
things.
right, but they can't go back and correct, they can't go back and say, okay, you had you did timely
So
monthly
how do we get
reconciliation.
past that then? I'm saying you can't change the past. So how do you get past 21 and 22 then?
Well, I mean, 21 and 22 are gonna have,
mess
you're gonna have material weaknesses too. because-
Exactly, so we won't have so.
But you hopefully will be able to, if 21 and 22 follow suit, we'll be able to at least have unmodified opinion on the financial statements.
So how are you gonna do that? What do they have to give you to get another unmodified opinion?
I mean, they have to
Show
provide.
that they're doing it currently?
Well, how do we get rid of the material weaknesses?
We can't get rid of the weaknesses because you've already identified. I got that.
Right, yeah.
So how do we get past not correcting the past? That's what I want to know. I mean, you said you got to get information from finance, treasurer, social services. The only reason, the way they can give you something is what they're doing currently to say that we've changed our weaknesses, right?
Well, what they can do is they can go back and recreate reconciliations and be able to provide the support needed to substantiate the financial statements. So that's one thing, right? One, you got to be able to substantiate the financial statements.
Okay. And if they can't find
that's part one. Part two is with the internal control processes, and that you can't go back.
Right,
It is what it is.
You're doing it now.
Right now, yeah. So, I know they're working with city staff to implement these policies and procedures, so eventually maybe everything can be clean. But you can't go back and change.
Yeah, that's
Now,
what
but
I'm
you can go back and go through records and perform reconciliations and say, okay, you know what, we didn't prepare these reconciliations timely,
Right.
But we can go back and recreate it and say, okay, this is how we get to what's in the financial statements. I mean, it's two different things. I mean, you have the financial statements that you have to be able to support, but then there's the underlying controls that should be in place on a daily, monthly basis.
Right.
And that's when we're talking about internal controls, we're talking about those daily, monthly activities.
Operations, yeah.
Right, your operations. So because we're so far back, I mean, while we can get to a unmodified opinion with all the work that they did to go back and basically redo the financials, that allowed you to get an unmodified opinion on the financials, but it didn't change history. So,
No, of course not.
so again, if they can provide the same type of information, then we can have for 21 and 22 and 23 could have an unmodified opinion, but you're going to have, the material weaknesses are still going to be there.
So they haven't done 21 and 22. And so who's going to do that?
Look, so I think, well, I don't want to speak for them, but I believe they've worked through those, so they're ready.
Who is they?
The Robert Bob Group.
Okay, so you're waiting for Robert Bob to give you this information to show that they at least have financial,
Yes.
found the records.
Yeah,
that
that's
need
what
to
they- yeah.
substantiate.
So, so as we get ready to start the 21 audit, we will reach out to them and say, okay, we're ready to proceed with 21. This is the list of information that we need. They're going to upload all that to us,
Right.
and then we get started.
So we waiting on Bob and you. It is ridiculous. I think they were doing that as they were doing the order.
Well, I do think they are doing that. We had to get 20 done first before we can move to 21. So I think their being able to get it to us should be, again, I haven't seen the status of any of it for 21, but it's my understanding that that's ready to go and ready to be uploaded to us.
Okay.
So we can get started. Now that 20's done, we can get
So
started
you didn't
on.
speak to him before you came to see when he was gonna upload it? You didn't speak to the Bob group to see when they actually gonna upload this information before you came tonight?
I have not spoken to them, but
Have
they.
you been city manager? You know when they gonna upload this magical information?
They have some, Mr. Foley has some items to complete for this to be ready to be finalized. This is a draft, and so the anticipation.
There's a
for-
draft for 20.
A draft
Oh
for
my
20,
God.
okay.
That would be-
They have some internal processes to complete, to wrap up. So the expectation is for 21 to be uploaded and started in January.
Right, so now that we're done with 20, we will reach out to the Robert Bob group. They will upload the stuff, and then starting the 1st of January, we'll
So will you
dive
give the
into it.
council a monthly update when y'all, where y'all are
And I submit it weekly on Fridays.
on Friday, okay?
So 21 in January, do they have estimated dates for the holiday?
We may be able to develop a schedule now that we have 20 out the door, because 20 will roll over to 21. A lot of the material will, and so we expect it to go faster.
Right, because as they were going through their work, not only were they doing 20, they were doing 21, 22, 23. And so I think they probably have all that stuff ready to give us. But instead of giving us 4 years at a time, we got to take it 1 year at a time. So finish 20, now I'm going to ask for 21 stuff. And they're going to upload 21 stuff. And then as soon as we finish 21, I'm going to say, hey, can you upload 22 stuff for us? And then they're going to upload 22.
Who's gonna be preparing that? Rob Bob group's gonna be gone, so who's gonna be doing it?
Staff.
Well,
It's right there.
it's already, the work that they've done
Already
is
done.
already there.
It's in the computer somewhere.
Just confirm and make sure we don't pay them anymore.
Did we pay you your dues yet?
And not yet.
Okay.
Okay. Counselor Pelmer, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Foley, I just have a hard time believing that 60 days is going to hit and stick. Just from seeing what has happened and transpired here in 2020, and I know that there were issues with it, but it was multiple months and extensions. Do we need to request from your firm like an additional team to help expedite this work? I mean, I want us to hit the 60 days, but just if 2020 was just any indication for a future, even if it's just half of what it's taking for 2020, we still aren't going to hit the 60 days. I mean, do we need extra teams for our audits?
No, I think we have the staff available to do it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think we have the staff to do it. Now, again, the 60 days is, are we getting, sufficient information to get go? So if we get some information in February, but we don't get adjusted trial balances till August, I mean, you're really, and while you can do some stuff in February with the information you got, the audit really starts once you get the set of books.
But when you ask for something, what I would like for you to do is to CC the entire city council on the
That's what I was
request.
just saying.
And in addition to that, the school finance director, the school board, I mean, we all need to know because, I mean, we have got to get these things done. And, it's a shame that between, the Robert Bob group and this, that we're still continuing to push on. And I know Councilor Denton, called me early today, and, her biggest hope was that by the time she left city council, that a lot of this was going to be done and cleaned up. And I think same thing with Vice Mayor Gore and Councilor Pelham. You made a comment that you said, you won't start until January 1. So if we give you all the stuff tomorrow, I mean, that's still 3 weeks left in this year. I mean, could you guys not start now?
I mean, we probably couldn't start tomorrow, but we could maybe start in like a couple weeks. I mean, we have something on the schedule for next week, but I mean, we've got January slotted to focus on the city of Hopewell.
Because, I mean, if you're talking about a 60-day turnaround, and then we've got 3 weeks, I mean, that's 1/3 of that time frame. That's 21 days. I would just hate to see, a delay like that if we could start working on it more expeditiously.
Well, I can request that we get the 21 information uploaded, and I can find some staff to start working on it. But I mean, we do have other obligations that we're having to do, but we can certainly get 21 started.
Okay. Vice Mayor Gore and then Councilor Holloway.
Thank you. I just want to make sure there's a lot of back and forth. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I want to make sure I'm articulating this correctly for residents as well. Part of the issue because I was team get rid of your firm a while ago when you came here, and I was like, what's the problem? And that is when you articulated that you had not received everything as the go count, even though council thought that's what had occurred, and it wasn't to your presence that we realized that wasn't the case. And that was late in the game. That was only about like maybe 2 months ago, if that, maybe a month ago, when we received clarification that you did not receive all the financial documents to be able to do the audit. So quite frankly, in my opinion, the time frame from when you presented to us and gave that clarification to now has actually been pretty quick. So I do want to say that for the record, after you gave that clarification, you guys did turn it around very swiftly. So the key here is, it really wasn't made apparent to us that you had not received the documents. So that goes back to communication to council, that there's been some delays there because, again, we thought the Robert Bob Group and their partners had provided you everything. At that meeting, we did say that we did not want you to receive all documents because it could be confusing. And we said for them to put it into a folder, and that when you were available or ready to, then you will pull the next set of financials to start the next year's audit. Because up until then, you could still be requesting changes, and the data that you would have would be outdated. Correct?
Yeah.
So that's why you don't have.
Yeah, that's why we haven't requested the
yet.
21 stuff yet till we were done with 20.
Correct. So just want to make sure that's on the same page. And then also, if I understand correctly, you want to make sure the citizens understand correctly, the issues here is going back to 2016, truly 2016, that's when we started getting audit reports that said that they were unable to render an audit opinion because they couldn't produce the financial records. Then we had Land 12 come in, then we had other groups come in, and it's always been the same cycle of not being able to produce the financial records to be audited. So from my understanding, Robert Bob Group, when it came in, they were able to, again, redo another prior year's audit to produce the financial records, which has been most of this time because they had to create records that were non-existent and also produce those statements to be audited. And then now that they have those produced, they can use that template for next year's, and that's why you're saying they want to request them in advance. So there, just for clarification, that is why the audit doesn't go into the, that's the win here, is that now we have financial statements that a firm can be able to audit. Without that, we wouldn't get an audit done at all.
Right.
So clearly, up until 23, we're going to have material weaknesses because, again, we can't change the past. However, moving forward, the finance department under Director Jordan will be able to submit those quickly because our Bob Group has already did the groundwork in getting everything prepared, minus what you will ask me to adjust moving forward, correct?
Right, correct.
So that will provide an expedited process to be able to review those, because the weaknesses are not going to be adjusted. We're just going off of financials,
Correct.
which is why you feel like the timeline is reasonable.
Right, yes. Yep.
Is that correct?
That's correct. That's right. And again, it's, we've now gone through one audit with the Robert Bob Group producing information, so now we're used to their stuff, they're used to what we want, so that will also
Okay.
expedite the
Trying to be
process.
fair, you know what I'm saying? Because at first I was team, let them go. But after you gave us clarification, it makes sense. And I just want to also state for the record, Dr. Maker and council can hopefully support me on this. If the finance department is still waiting for any outstanding documents, like the SOPs and any other departments that have not received the work product from the Robert Bob Group, please send an email copying council requesting that information. If you can, ask the finance director and whoever else is still waiting for documents, do that please before we leave for the holiday. Get a summary of what's outstanding, because from my understanding, when I've inquired about stuff, there's still outstanding deliverables that we have essentially paid for, contracted, that we haven't received yet. So whatever is impeding them to be able to actually implement the work product and apply the SOPs that were developed, that needs to be provided to the city as soon as possible. Does anyone have any objections to that? Because I think there's some objections. Okay, we're good to go there. All right, you have a happy holiday.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you so very much.
Well, Councilor Hollow, did you still have anything that you wanted to say?
No, that's what I'm trying to address.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Foley.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to communications from citizens. Madam Clerk, do you mind reading the statement?
A communication from citizens, period, limited in total to 30 minutes, is part of the order of business at each regular council meeting. All persons addressing the council shall approach the microphone, give their name, and if they reside in Hopewell, their ward number, and limit comments to 3 minutes. No one is permitted to speak on any item scheduled for consideration on the regular agenda of the meeting. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body. Any questions must be asked through the presiding officer. Any person who makes personal, impertinent, abusive, or slanderous statements or incites disorderly conduct in council chambers may be barred by the mayor from a further audience before council and removed, subject to appeal to a majority of council. See Rules 405 and 406.
Okay. I don't have anyone signed up for this evening. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? No? Okay. Moving on to public hearings. Madam Clerk, do you mind reading the statement?
All persons addressing the council shall step to the microphone, give their name, and if they reside in Hopewell, their ward number, and limit comments to 3 minutes. No one may address the council more than once per meeting unless granted permission by the presiding officer. Speakers address the council as a body, not individual councilors. Questions are asked of councilors and staff through the presiding officer. Any person who makes personal, impertinent, abusive, and slanderous statements or incites disorderly conduct in the council chamber may be reprimanded by the presiding officer and removed from the meeting upon a majority vote of councilors present, excluding any councilor who is the subject of the motion. See Rules 405 and 406.
Okay. Our first public hearing tonight is the stormwater fees, second reading by Mr. Campbell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Gore, council members. Back in front of you here again to address the stormwater fee study. Let's see here. Pardon me just one moment. So while this is loading, I'll just basically go and give you a heads up on what we're going to do today. Given the questions, the depth of this topic, the amount of work that was put into the study, I felt that it was in the best interest of council and in the interest of the city to be able to convey the information required and requested by each one of you to go to the source, to go to my subject matter experts. I'm actually going to have Deputy Director Mike Crocker give you this presentation, and he has every bit of information, hopefully, that you would need for this. We will be asking for action tonight, as well as a public hearing. So now that I've got this pulled up, I'll pull it over to Deputy Director Crocker.
Thanks, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. A little bit of background. So the city's stormwater management program currently has a $4 monthly fee. It's largely been in existence since 2015. Great place to start. Hopewell was in the same situation as a lot of other regulated localities in implementing that fee. With time, and that, again, it's a great place to start. We worked with CDM Smith to evaluate the utility, ultimately to determine what our needs are within the city of Hopewell. October 22nd, council received a presentation from CDM Smith. Again, based on these findings, our current utility rate structure is inadequate to support city needs, and I want to point to some specific program areas that are deficient. And I believe this may address some of your concerns. Councilor Joyner, you'd asked about budget specifics and where we stand currently. So the stormwater utility generates about $905,000 currently. That's a minimum standard, right? That covers some staffing component, maintenance, vehicles, office lease. It really doesn't touch much in regulatory compliance and capital investment. So that's what we're going to focus on tonight. Here you go is our existing stormwater utility. It's pretty flat. And by flat, I mean short of staff raises, fuel increases, our budget stays the same every year. And you'll notice that in the regulatory compliance line and capital improvements line, they're very minimal investment. Out of our entire $905,000, that budget breaks down to about 55% is our staffing component, so that's management and maintenance combined. If you look into contracted services, so this would be services we contract out for stormwater repairs. That makes up almost a quarter of our budget at 22%. Those are repairs that we cannot perform in-house. The rest of this is encapsulated in things that are pretty well fixed. Our office lease, office supplies, our data integrators cost, which is pretty well fixed. It makes up about 12% of the budget. So getting into the options that were offered by CDM Smith, I don't want to spend too much time on ranking number 4 and ranking number 3, and the reason for that is they do not fully address the needs of the city. You'll notice here that this is ranked number 4. It's the least preferable. We have our management, maintenance, regulatory compliance, and capital lines, as you see there, with no money allocated to capital until FY30. This point will be made later in the presentation when I show you the list of capital projects. And I do want to point for regulatory compliance, just so everybody's aware, the city is a regulated MS4 community. We do have nutrient reductions to meet. That requires investment. We also have capital needs to meet. And that's where we'll get into rankings number 2 and number 1 will better support those lines. Again, ranking number 3, it addresses some of the regulatory component of the program, but it does defer capital needs until right around FY28. This would have been an 8-year, 50% annual increase of the utility fee from where it stands currently. Staff ranking number 2, this is a 2-year annual $2 increase and a reduction of the utility incentive for industry to 20%. So essentially, one would take effect this year and then take effect in FY27, ultimately bringing funding levels up to just under $2.4 million And you'll see some funding available in the regulatory compliance and the capital program lines, with management and maintenance staying relatively flat. And then the preferred alternative, which is staff ranking number 1, it's the one that we recommend, is the $8 utility rate increase and the reduction of the industrial credit to 20%. You'll see that that provides a stable source of funding and maybe not completely adequate in the long term, however, a step in the right direction to help support regulatory compliance needs as well as capital program needs, which are mounting pretty fast as we've seen in the last 6 months. So if you look at this relative to our current budget, and please, you may disregard the bottom table is listed as FY25. That's our current budget. It's more to represent that our $905,000 budget stays where it is across the board. Looking up above, you'll notice that at the end of FY27, depending on our regulatory compliance needs, that number drops off and the capital number jumps up, allowing us to invest more money in the capital projects line. And hopefully at some point with clean audits, may be able to support debt service. The idea for the stormwater utility is for it to stand on its own. This happens a lot in new utilities, water utilities, wastewater utilities. Back in the day, they were created and they were largely subsidized by general funds. The idea of the utility is obviously to get away from that and be self-sustaining, and that's what this at least starts us down the road to get to. This is a list of capital projects that we know of right now. You'll see some money programmed in, and some of these sources of funds are not necessarily the utility. They could be outside state funds. And the ones without a cost identified, that's because we haven't even got to them yet. So you start to see the magnitude of these projects. It mounts pretty quickly, and that's where the capital line in the budget becomes increasingly important. And again, our staff recommendation is to increase the base rate for the utility from $4 to $8, reduction of the industrial credit to 20% from 90%, and we would ask that council help us to conduct a stormwater utility fee assessment every 4 years to ensure that the necessary funds are budgeted during each of our budgeting cycles. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Can you go back to that last slide?
You're still on page 20%.
So I have Counselor Holloway and then Counselor Pelham.
So there's a reduction. There's a 70% difference with the reduction of this utility incentive.
Correct.
But then, how much does that make?
It gets us from about 905 to about 1.3. Without any increase in the rate, that's just a reduction of the credit, of the incentive.
So you're saying about
A few $100,000 just for the reduction of the credit.
So it's a couple $100,000 more we're getting from that. And how much total is it with this $4 increase with the utility? How much is the total?
So you go from 905 to 2.3, so $2 million. You get an extra $1 million.
So why is the increase?
If you increase the utility rate from 4 to 8, it's a 100% increase.
Right, I don't see what. Yeah, I would agree with that increase. That's a tremendous increase.
Counselor Pelham?
That was insured. You want them to get, instead of getting 90% credit, you want them to get 20%.
The recommendation is for a 20% incentive, yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay. I have no problem, moving forward with reducing the industrial incentive from 90 to 20%. And before going up on the rate, I'd much rather see the stormwater billing done with the real estate taxes as opposed to the monthly billing. You can eliminate the data integrators, 12% piece here on your expenses. In addition, you'll increase your collection rate. So, I mean, that's something that I would be willing to support. But as I mentioned, last month, I have a hard time justifying going up on a rate when I'm still waiting for streets to be paved that were signed off in multiple years' budgets, and I just did a 4-cent increase real estate tax rate, which I know it was needed. We hadn't raised the real estate rate in over 10 years to fund a lot of these capital projects, but I'm still sitting here, going into 6 months into the fiscal year, and I still don't have the first street paved.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't speak to the relevance of streets and stormwater, but maybe Mr.
No,
Campbell
there
can.
is none, but we'd be happy to give you a encumbered contract that we have with Newmarket, our annual, for work to begin in the spring. I really don't see any connection with the payment to the stormwater program. Like I said, we can have something over to you, I would imagine by the end of the month, before the first of the year, we can have a contract to show you for what we're going to have done on the paving. Pardon me. The issue is, especially with the regulatory compliance aspect of this, with the phosphorus credits, we are going to be going into the general fund to pay these expenses if you do not do something with this rate. Pardon me. So, it's obviously council's prerogative to do what you decide to do. If you don't take care of this now, though, it's just going to get worse. It's going to snowball. We're going to need more money, and we're going to fall further behind. So, I would just say that their staff recommendations are there for a reason. They're backed up with facts and math. And if you have any questions pertaining to the stormwater, that would be great to ask those.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you it does have relevance because what I have right here is a wallet that most citizens have of some way, shape, form, or fashion. And we had to take money out of each citizen's wallet in order to fund capital improvement projects. Okay, some of which will go into the stormwater program. Okay? Now, you're asking me to hit the same citizens again for another tax increase, yet the same capital projects have gone uncompleted since 2019.
Well, in the CIP that we submitted that's approved, there's a schedule in there, in that CIP. We have not missed any dates in the approved CIP, the one that you approved, for any of the projects. We are not behind on anything. So I'm still lost.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you, Mr. Campbell, because clearly the deadlines have been missed because I still have streets from 2019 that have not been paved. And again, we've funded capital projects for at least since I've been on council for the past 6 years, and they haven't been done. I mean, again, I can't speak for the rest of city council on what they would do with the fee, but I'm certainly willing to entertain it, and I probably will vote in favor of it once the streets are done. And I can show citizens progress, but no citizen is going to sit there and just take it on the chin when they have nothing to show for their extra tax dollars.
Well, we have plans and PE right away. We have quite a bit of work that's been completed here in the last, year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, I would say with regards to, I'm relatively new to this, right? I came here in March. This subject area is not new to me. This is year 17 for me. I do notice with a project like Heretic, that's a great example, right? It's on the docket to be built. However, when you start to look at the numbers, the Stormwater Fund doesn't carry the money to pay for that project, and the city doesn't carry the money to pay for that project. Its cost has escalated not because of scope increase at all. Just the nature of construction projects has increased so much that we'll be scrambling to figure out how to pay for it. Winston Churchill is a great example of that. The stormwater utility was not prepared to fund that repair. $1.2 million later, here we are. So Heretic's no different. And then I guess when I point to this project list, all of those are people who will be also waiting for those projects. So it just gets back to the capital funding line, and there are multiple ways to tackle that beast, right? It could be through the utility. It could be through general fund subsidy, which I'm personally not a fan of, but that's not my choice. There are different ways to fund it. This is our recommendation in how to fund it.
Again, I understand, but the Winston Churchill project is another great example. You know, that was life, limb, and emergency. Boom, done. We were able to get that taken care of. Why can I not get streets paved from 2019?
I'm sorry. Like I said, I can't.
And I understand you're new to this, but again, I have a hard time hitting citizens again for the same thing when the projects aren't completed.
I mean, I just can't argue with that logic, so.
Councilor Holloway?
I was gonna piggyback, well, actually, I put my light on, I was trying to speak before the mayor, but I think it was line, but anyway, I'm still piggyback on that as well. We increased the taxes, to the tune of not helping the citizens. Some people came here and complained and talked about choosing, whether or not they could get medication, or eat. Is that serious? You're talking about 100% increase, and there are other methods which I totally was going to speak to, relevant to how Mayor Parton has suggested as to how we could get that same cost through taxes. I don't agree with that much of an increase. I think it is completely out of line, and it seems minute or small to some people, but that building it in like that is just, again, like another tax increase. I won't vote for it. I won't vote for that increase. We have there's so many things that have been increased for the citizens, from raising the real estate taxes, and then they just had the year prior incurred an increase because of the assessment value. That was like a backdoor tax increase already. So we've hit them twice already, and now we're asking to do it again. I just think there's other avenues that we should consider, and this monthly bill of 100%, I just don't think it's the avenue to go.
Mike, do you know if the I'm sorry.
And one other thing, citizens, we can say to them all the time that, you know, you're going to put things in place, put things in place, put things in place. They vote us in place by the things that they can see. And so I have to concur with the mayor to say the streets have to be a priority. Those things have to be worked on. I guarantee you, turn around right now and ask any one of them. All we see in our text messages, emails, phone calls, on social media posts are constantly talking about how roads are tore up, and, you know, they call us out. That's like the biggest thing as a citizen. That's probably one of the biggest things if you're living in a house and riding down the street and that road is tore up. They don't want to hear nothing else but to get those streets fixed. So I have to concur with the mayor when it comes to that.
I would like to add one other thing to that too. I want to be clear that it's also difficult to complete capital improvement projects when we're under spending freezes, when we have low cash flow, and when we're told not to spend money. So, again, you know, I totally understand where you're coming from. I know that 100% increase is a big ask. I know that it's $4. I won't say only $4 because that $4 means something to somebody. But for this to stand alone, for this project to be, for this fund to be self-sustaining, it's what it needs. And all we can do is provide you the information that we have. You can make the decisions that you want to make, and you can live with the consequences. So
we can also respectfully, you know, I don't like that tone.
Consequences.
I'm sorry.
I don't like your tone with that. I think you should address us more honorably than to come off in that type of tone or space, that comment that you made. But secondly, when you're talking about our constituents are our bosses at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
We represent what they're asking us to do. So when you're talking about freezes and things of that nature, rightly so, because we have a budget that we have to stay within. But I can guarantee you, as counselors and representatives of wards, if you all bring to us a need of a street being repaired, I can almost guarantee you that we'll go to the city manager, ask how much, you'll bring to her how much it costs, and we'll determine whether or not we can fit that in and approve that to happen. Those things just have to be brought before us. Again, our citizens are our bosses. They're calling us all the time. Something like that can be rectified, not just to simply throw it away because we're on a freeze.
Yes, sir, I definitely understand. The only thing I was asking Mike is, just for an example, on a resident impact, the issue that you've been working on, is it Lee Street? The home that the $500,000 minimum fix is purchasing the property?
That's Hampton Avenue.
Hampton Avenue. So if you wouldn't mind just giving that as an example of like the fallout of not addressing storm sewer issues.
Sure.
Thank you.
It's one of our capital projects. So the council's familiar. LaToya Jenkins came in here at 3307 Hampton Ave. One of the first people I met in the city of Hopewell in my professional capacity here. I don't forget much. I'm an elephant when it comes to that, so I remember a lot, and I remember a lot of people. I remember her distinctly. That particular project is relatively expensive from a conventional fix. To basically put it briefly, you have an undersized pipe under a roadway that acts as a dam. Well, her house is the first house upstream. At a minimum, $500,000. We thought that going into Winston Churchill. It turned out to be $1 million. There are opportunities for that project or that property. I won't get into those tonight, but that's one particular aspect of the Stormwater Fund not having enough funding in itself to help program in funding to begin design on projects such as hers. Hers isn't the only one. It's one that stands out in recent memory, and she's been here to talk about it. There are others on this list that have just as much, if not more, impact to the community. I certainly understand this is not my first bout with a utility fee and the impact that it has on citizens, especially in light of other tax increases. So I don't envy your position in having to consider stuff like this. Just purely as staff, our recommendation is, as managers of this fund and of this utility, this is what we're required to do, is to put forth these recommendations. And I get it, it's unpopular. But when we look at that project list, we have to think about not just tomorrow, but 20 years from now. And how do we make progress on those projects? Again, I don't envy your position. It's a tough one, and it's an increase. That's what it is. It's an increase.
I think we could budget in. I think when you have budget requests and acts, and you have these projects that need to be tuned in, that they can be requested, and then other things that we put money towards, we can kind of move those around in the coming year when it comes to budgeting time, but not just to shoot the citizens another increase when there's a lot of moving around and moving parts, and already going to be more money coming in by the other increases that we've had already. So I think this is just a budgeting thing and a reconsideration of where monies are going for future budgets.
Okay.
I digress.
Councilor Joyner?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to disagree with some of the counselors. I think you spoke to something, and I understand. I mean, this is, it's a 100% increase, and it is. And I don't want to use the term just $4 either. But one of the things that the reason that we're in this situation is because previous councils have not looked forward. I think also, our citizens count on council and they count on city administration to try to do operationally the right things. And in this particular situation, maybe the reason that our streets are, a mess, and the reason that we have this kind of situation is because perhaps previous councils were a little short-sighted. The fact that this rate has not been increased in 10 years, while inflation has gone crazy, how do we, and we say, oh, we can fund it different ways. Well, how? Then let's give us the reasons. Let's list how we're gonna change this. What monies are we gonna take from what has already been allocated to change this? And I do think that, you can say here, their recommendations, conduct a utility fee assessment every 4 years and ensure that the necessary funds are budgeted for during each budgeting cycle. And I think the budget, when we go back to so many of the issues that we have, budgeting is a real issue. And I'll bring up a sore subject. We had surpluses earlier in the year. That came because budgeting was not done effectively. And now, the allocations of those surpluses, those can come into question, fall into question, et cetera. But I concur with reducing this 90% utility fee incentive. I think that's fine. I think it needs to go to 20%. The industry does not deserve that kind of a pass. And I don't know when those incentives were put into place. I would like to know why that was, but maybe we'll never find out. I just think that this is a real serious thing. And when you look at these numbers, I mean, the money's not going to come from, we can't pull it out of the sky. I wish we had a money tree. But I'm going to have to, when it comes to a vote, I'm going to have to support the recommendation of the staff, understanding that while some of the citizens may say, oh, look what you're doing to us, we're going to say, look, we're trying to fix something that has been broken for a long time. And I do think that we have to be very careful about any tax increases in the future, period. And we may need to look at rescinding some increases that were done last year. But this one, I'm on board. I think you've done a good job. I can see the numbers running, and I'm gonna vote to support your recommendations.
Okay. Let me ask this question before, because I got this whole side. Are any of y'all calling to make a motion or anything? No. Okay. So I just need to open up the public hearing and close it.
Yeah.
All right. So it's Denton, Pelham, and then Holloway.
Okay. In this presentation, you put down the one slide that showed a lot of the projects for the city of Hopewell.
That's correct.
A lot.
Stormwater projects only.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's quite a list. So you're telling me that if we, and Hopewell, we don't make a product that we get profits from and we're not getting rich off of, it falls on the taxpayer's back. This is where it falls. So it looks like tonight you're giving us a choice. Either we try to fund it so you can do your job and fulfill these projects, and they're quite a list, or we don't approve it, and these projects will not get done, and the citizens will not be happy about that. We're caught between a catch-22 here. And I don't know the best answer. I just know recently I talked to Mr. Campbell about the project on Heretic Avenue. We had an issue, wondered why it hadn't been fixed. The work had been with the engineering. It was ready. We didn't have the money. So it didn't get done. This will give us the money to get these projects done. Am I right?
No, yes, ma'am. This will definitely get us working down a path. And I do apologize, Councilor Holloway, to Council, Mayor Pardon, Vice Mayor Gore, for my tone if I was too passionate. I care so very deeply about this because I care about this city. That's why I came here. I'm not trying to do I'm leaving, so you can't, that's none of that. It's because I really, really care. I want to see good things happen for this place. I want to leave this place in a much better shape than when I found it. And unfortunately, we're so far behind in everything infrastructure. And I'm not telling anyone here anything they don't know. it costs money. And the only way that we're going to make progress is with more revenue. And with a stormwater fund, the only source of revenue is the utility fee. Because this is not something we can fix through economic development. This is not something we can fix through other means. And we certainly can't raid the general fund when the general fund can't cover the things that it needs to cover right now. I mean, Chief Rupert put up a fantastic presentation, and I support him 100%, and I'm the Director of Public Works. So I really just want to see a utility fund the utility so that you guys have the freedom to use your general fund for what you deem necessary. That's really where I'm coming from.
I will say that this issue is not unique to Hopewell. When I was once a lowly stormwater manager in 2007, I went to the city of Waynesboro. They had a capital improvements plan. When I started to look at the projects, and I found some documents in my office from 1961, 17 of the capital improvement projects in that city that were on the current CIP were from 1961. So I get what you're talking about councils not really knowing what to do and maybe feeling paralyzed about what direction to go. But that just shows you the compounding effect. And these things don't get built overnight. We've been very fortunate that our maintenance crew that we have, we've worked with them to expand their capabilities, taken on some of these projects ourselves, hoping to reduce some of that cost, eliminate some of these issues that they have the capacity to be able to do. But when it comes to larger projects that require the assistance of consulting firms and general contracting firms to build, it's tough and it's expensive. And that's why we have to recommend what we have to recommend is if we start to chip away at this, it has to start somewhere.
Okay. Councilor Pelham, Holloway, then Gore.
And have y'all figured out of all these projects, which is still some yet to go to be added to this list,
Yes, ma'am.
how much the ones that don't have any numbers beside it, you have any idea how much each one of those projects is more than what this increase would yield, right? The money that you had from the plants, that yield, I think it's $400,000. The $4 increase yields another $400,000. Ain't but $800,000. I don't think that can fund one project on this list.
No, it can't. And the way utilities are built, this happened long ago with water and wastewater utilities. When they get started generating revenue through utility increases is generally used as a way to support debt service. And then debt service is utilized to borrow larger sums of money to be able to tackle 4 and 5 projects at a time. Obviously, that's a decision council makes, referendums are issued, the city manager recommends. It gets you to that point. Right now, we are flat. There is no capacity for capital investment.
Even if we had a bond rate,
we can't
we don't have the money coming in today to make the payments.
Yeah, we're having money and we don't have a bond rate, so we can't even incur debt, right?
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
So even if we could incur debt, we can't use that service.
Right.
But as good utility management, that's typically the step that people
So
take,
you don't-
regardless of what the increase is to generate capacity to support depreciation and debt service.
If we could borrow the money, because there's no way that, and how would we phrase that to do the real estate, Mr. Mayor, that you were suggesting? How would we have to vote, how would we have to make that motion so that the $4 will be added to the real estate costs instead of individual citizens?
Just a simple motion.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
do, yeah, okay.
We can
Then,
certainly-
I would consider voting for it that way versus just,
That's an extra couple $100,000 right
Yeah,
there.
there's $100,000 to be saved by moving off of data integrators into real estate.
Yeah.
It's a $105,000 expense annually.
yeah,
With a
we get
poor
away from
collection
data integrators, yeah. So that'd be another $100,000, okay.
Which is, every penny's a step in the right direction.
Right, right.
It's something we should do regardless.
Yeah.
Even if we do
Yeah,
nothing
I would
else.
consider doing it that way, because $4 divided by 12 is real cheaper than $4.
Okay.
And $4 a month, right?
Yeah.
$48, I mean. added to your property tax.
Be 100.
It's still, you're still paying, you're still paying.
But are you saying convert the whole $8 to?
So the idea would be to have the stormwater utility fee on the personal property tax, and that does two things, okay? Well, three things. First, it eliminates $105,000, as Mayor Parton pointed out, in waste for data integrators. The second thing it does is it increased collection rates. So we'd actually have, we'd see a nice little bump in just, not a huge one, but a nice bump in our collection. But the third thing it does, the most important thing it does, is it puts the onus of the stormwater utility on the actual property owner, not a renter.
Right.
So the property owner would receive, the one who owns the asset would receive the bill.
Right.
And it would be up to them how they do what they do with that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
okay, Counselor Holloway, then Counselor Gore, and then let's open up the public hearing so we can start doing motions.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I haven't spoken yet, and I think you're calling people for their second round already.
I thought you spoke on those public.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I would just say, I understand all sides of the equation. Unfortunately, you're not going to like my answer as well. I personally am not a fan of requests for adjustments outside the budget cycle. We're about to come on to preparing next year's budget, which includes fees and other items. This should be a part of that revenue discussion for council to adopt the budget. I think the timing of this is perfect, as if this was a work session, this would be perfect. However, I do think that this should be included in the budget process next year. So you guys should be teaming that up with the finance department and the city manager, in my personal opinion, to present that as part of the budget request that will also support the capital improvement projects, et cetera. Same thing goes with any other departments that need fees, Parks and Recreation, Planning Department, all of that should be the conversation at that time. So I personally recommend this coming back during the budget session and table and get for further discussion.
I believe this was possibly for implementation at the start of the next fiscal year, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, but
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
I just want to be clear about that.
Next
This wasn't
fiscal year is July 1.
Yeah, this wasn't a mid-year adjustment, I guess is what I was getting at.
Right, but I'm still saying the whole point is, even if you started July 1, you're starting it for next year's budget, which again goes back to budget conversations.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
So I think that all this ties into the budget conversations that should be starting in January, February. So it would still be implemented July 1, but I do think this is very premature for this time.
So what I had in mind with this and the action I was asking for would be for this to take place for January 1. But the other side of that is I also want to just remind everyone that.
Excuse me, I'll just say for the record, I did ask for it to be tabled until the budget cycle, so that's technically a motion. So you can finish what you're saying, but I do want it to be clear that I did put that on the floor for action.
Well, we gotta do the public hearing
Correct,
first.
so.
I was just going to finish up by when we worked through our budget with Russ Branson, the $4 stormwater utility increase was in that. It just wasn't. It was part of our approved budget recommendation.
Yes.
That's all I'm bringing up. So, anyways,
And just
that's
call
all.
it out next time too, even just like you're doing now, right? So here's the thing. I don't think you were hired when we had all these issues with the switching over administrations, et cetera, and realizing that staff have been requesting for stuff that never actually made the council. Staff, you could talk to your peers that were here before you came on board. Eyes open, they thought we were just denying everything left and right, and come to find out we just weren't aware. So I would just say to you, FYI, again, if and when that happens, then you need to let council know, like, hey, I've been asking for this every single year. It never came before you. I've asked for these fees. I've made this case, and now we're in this pickle. Like, kind of what you're doing now, I get it. But you're coming into a situation to try to resolve prior practices, understood. But I would just say, like, again, that needs to be part of the budget conversation to make sure when you do your department request, and if you say, well, guys, we did it this past year, probably the timing of it again, we were talking about other fees and then what that looks like. So I would just think about the timing of it. That's all I'm saying. I agree with everything you're saying, but it's going to throw stuff out of whack.
Okay, Counselor Holloway?
We had several increases this year. I just spoke on a couple of them already. You know, the fact that the taxes that went up. We also took trash up. I forgot how much it did. Anyway, all of these little things add up, like quite a bit. Adding it to the tax ramifications makes it different because some citizens get tax breaks because of whatever statuses that they have. So I would still rather put it on that end than to put it in this. And to concur with, which is the same thing I said earlier with Vice Mayor, this is definitely something that should hit a budgeting conversation because with all of those increases, the tax increases and so forth, that meant it increased our budget. And I know you had the conversation that you would rather start a utility fund so that these things won't come out of the general funding, but that seems quite ambiguous. To me, it shouldn't go that direction. If citizens have been tasked with paying more in taxes, which has increased our revenue already, we should definitely be considering using that money and increase some of those funds and allocating them to the department for budget purposes, and then you can utilize those funds. And then on top of that, it more so in January seems like a waste of time because these funds won't even touch any of those projects. And like you said, you would use it as for debt and borrowing money, in which we couldn't do in the first place. So now we are.
We do have immediate needs.
No, I'm saying we have immediate needs, but if there's immediate needs there, then we went $6 million over in a budget before. I mean, if something is an emergency or needed, again, you get the right to come to council and bring those immediate needs up. But this is a budget conversation. I think it should be considered with the new council that we're going to have come January 1st when they start that. But to pull it out this direction, I don't think it should happen that way. I really honestly think it should happen in a budgeting conversation that we can pull funds from what we're already going to be getting an increase for or expected income that's coming in because of the tax increases and so forth. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. All right. I don't have anyone signed up for this public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this issue?
Mayor, I have a written in public comment.
You do? Okay. Go ahead, read it.
Mayor, councilors, and citizens, Catherine Padawaski, Ward 1. My opinion is that the industry stormwater fee should be reduced to 20% and that the citizens' fee should not be raised. My question is, who in city authorized the outrageous 90% credit to Hopewell's Industries? Hopewell has been taken advantage of by industry, questionable financial practices, and lack of accountability throughout the city. Hopewell is not an easy place to live or thrive. Our history shows this all too clear. Thank you.
Okay. All right. No one in the audience? All right. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. The motion that's on the floor right now is to table this discussion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Gore and seconded by Councilor Harris.
Point of order, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Postpone, you need to say the time, table, postpone it until.
Budget.
Dr. Menker, when do you anticipate having budget discussions commence?
Discussion will start in March.
So no earlier than the first budget meeting in March.
Okay. Any discussion?
This doesn't, again, this is separate and it doesn't have anything to do with any need that they would have. They can still come to us to make that clear. Right?
This is about what they came to talk about today, the fees.
Councilor Denton?
Are you under any time constraints on this?
Yes. I mean, I guess. Go ahead, Josh. Please.
I would just say, I'm sorry, I'm Josh Maton, the program manager here. I would just say that our time constraint is FY27. We're bound by our MS4 permit to meet regulatory compliance. We have 85 pounds of total phosphorus that we need to offset to meet our goals that are mandated by the state. So if we do not meet those requirements, we will be given a cease and desist letter. Consent order. So that is our time frame. It's nothing immediate, but in terms of 85 pounds of phosphorus that need to be reduced, that's quite a large time frame to plan and design and implement.
Projects to be able to meet that. Is what
Yes,
saying.
exactly.
But you need the funding for the projects,
Yes.
correct? So I'm not trying to be disrespectful. No matter what,
Yeah.
either you get a lump sum of money. Let me fix my tone. Either you get a lump sum of money to fix your projects immediately, or either it's still going to come in the next budget cycle, correct?
Yes.
So which means you won't get funds until July.
Yeah.
I'm making sure I'm not holding you up. So either way it goes, unless council gives you a check for X amount of thousands of dollars,
Yes.
you're going to be waiting to July to get any funds.
Right.
So if you wait to the budget process, I'm trying to really get clarity. It's not gonna be a difference, is it?
No, it would. Yeah. So.
You said what?
Say what? We'll get $1 million behind.
Yes.
$1 million behind what?
But you'll be $1 million behind. You just don't have money for $1 million, correct?
Not having collected it yet and not having it to spend on a project that may last a year.
But that's what I'm saying. You're still not be appropriating $1 million unless council gives you $1 million. You're still not going to have $1 million to spend.
So how much money will you be collecting within a period of time? $1 million a month, still not going to reach that goal. You're still not going to reach the goal even if we implemented what you were requesting tonight at $4 a month from every household.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
It's not debatable?
Because I put a table on the table.
Oh, okay. All right. Roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
Yeah.
Mayor Parton,
No.
Vice Mayor Gore,
What are we knowing? I mean, what are we knowing?
This is to table this until the budget session.
To the budget session next year.
So this is not where we know it's to table.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
I can't hear.
Counselor Denton,
No.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
If we're tabling it,
We'll talk about it later.
we're going to still discuss implementing this later?
The
We'll
motion.
talk about it later.
Yeah.
Kill it. No.
Counselor Joyner.
No.
Motion fails 4-3.
Okay. Is there a motion to reduce the 90% industrial credit down to 20%?
So moved.
So, and then you say something about the tax?
Separate.
Yeah. They're going to be separate motions.
Who's making the motion?
I heard Counselor Joyner. Is there a second?
Me.
Okay. Counselor Holloway. Roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
No.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Counselor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Is there a motion to remove the monthly stormwater fee from the utility billing to the real estate taxes?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got one question.
Okay.
If you move it to the real estate taxes,
Mhm.
this is only going to affect the homeowners,
Correct.
not the rentals.
Correct.
Correct.
The owner of the actual asset.
Right. But, I mean, it's still something, they use the roads and all of the infrastructure. The renters will use that. Hopewell has about 50% rentals. So you're putting a big burden on your homeowners.
Get tax credits for their
I mean, you're just dumping on the homeowners.
That's an expense you get tax credit for.
I mean, I think the renters deserves to take some of this too.
Which we don't.
The homeowner would have the option to pass that cost along.
Right, that rental increase
sometimes when it's packaged as a rent cost and it's all utilities included or something to that effect, you're typically burying those costs for utilities within that cost.
But are you going to get as much, these charts that you showed us, the income that will be coming in at $8, is that based on everybody paying it or just the homeowners?
So the way that this fee is structured is off of ERU. It's a residential unit, right? So the fee is attached to a structure. And so that's how that will work. Right now, the billing goes to whoever, it goes to the mailbox, whoever the occupant is, right? If it was attached to the real estate tax, it would obviously be billed to the homeowner, the actual homeowner. Now, whether or not the homeowner decides to pay that or increase their rent $4, that is totally up to them. But that's on them, not on us. And the person who is the owner of the asset is liable for the gains from that asset and the stormwater infiltration that doesn't happen because of their asset.
And so, like an investor who owns an apartment, he will pay, he or she, the corporation, they will pay based on owning
There's a
50 apartments.
There's a billing for apartments. There's a billing for industry, and there's a billing for individual.
And then they will raise the rent of their people.
Yeah, I would assume so. And then there's a billing for single-family units.
It's a merry-go-round.
So, it's a complicated system, but it works. How the billing is assigned is actually pretty smart and efficient.
Okay, Councilor Holloway?
If you pull out your phone, Councilor Denton, or your computer, rental increase has gone up in Virginia by 4.1% in 2024. I think that 4.1% of the average cost is already tremendously raised enough for the owners of that rental property to take care of that extra $4 fee a month. Just FYI.
Okay. You do it. Okay, Vice Mayor Gore.
When is the ask for this to take effect?
On the next real estate bill.
The next one, and that can be processed by then.
The next real estate bill is
June.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. I'm
We
sorry.
got plenty of time.
I was thinking something differently. I think what was due now. Sorry.
Personal property
Yes, I had it mixed up. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Call for the vote. Let's just get this over.
Roll call.
Before roll call, who seconded the motion?
The motion was made by, I think it was, was it you? Okay. And then I think Councilor Joyner seconded it. Or was it you, Councilor Harris?
No, I didn't join her.
Was it? Okay.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
Yes.
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway,
Yes.
Councilor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ward.
So the rest of this remains unresolved.
Peyton Streets.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, tonight's public hearing relates to conditional use permit requests. It's a single-family dwelling on non-conforming lot, parcel 0270240, located on Bank Street. The applicant is Value Corp LLC, and this particular property is located in Ward 1. Actually, it's in the historic City Point district, which the zoning there is TH1. The request is to build a new single-family dwelling, and this public hearing was advertised properly. Here's some maps for you. On the left-hand side, general location, and then on the right is the specific property. This is an older aerial that shows an accessory structure and some fencing and some vegetation that's no longer there. The lot's a cleared lot. The minimum lot size in TH1 is 80 feet wide, 12,000 square feet. This property on Bank Street is 38 feet wide and 2,470 square feet. However, it's essentially the same exact size as the parcel next door that has a historic house on it. The nonconformity with this particular parcel is both in the width and the total square footage. Moving quickly here, that's a picture of the front elevation of the proposed house, single-story house. It's a one-story dwelling, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,056 square feet. Floor plan there, side elevations. TH1 district is our City Point Historic District, so it does, in our comprehensive plan, it actually calls for leniency with things like yard sizes, setbacks, lot sizes, that sort of thing. And that's based primarily because of its historic nature and its natural and organic development patterns that occurred over time. The applicant this evening, she has already received Architectural Review Board approval for the house design as I showed it to you, and Board of Zoning Appeals approval for variance to the yard requirements. This proposed house pretty much mimics the neighboring property, and as it would have been done in the past. Staff recommends approval of the CUP with the one condition that it be in substantial conformance with the set of house plans and modifications approved by the Architectural Review Board on September 4th. We have not received any written or spoken comment in regards to this application. No public comment was offered at the public hearing at Planning Commission on November 14th. Planning Commission voted 3-0 to approve with the same condition that staff was recommending. The applicant's here this evening if you have any specific questions, and I am also available.
Okay, Councilor Joyner?
Yeah, I had a question about the substantial conformance.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that bothered me a little bit. What exactly does substantial conformance mean visually in terms of the aesthetics?
It means that the house as presented in
Yes.
these drawings is how the house must be built.
Okay, that's all the
Yep,
language.
that's all that means.
All right, that's.
And of course, any deviations, if they were to come, would have to go through the ARB, and if it's substantial enough where it affects the conditional use permit, it would have to come before you again as well.
Okay, thank you. Hope it's charming.
Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. I don't have anyone signed up for this one tonight. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this?
Mayor Parton, I have one written in public comment.
You do? Okay.
From Miss Debbie Randolph. Dear Mayor Parton and City Council, I am Debbie Randolph, resident of Ward 1. Thank you for allowing my thoughts to be read to record during this public hearing. I am opposed to the building of a single-family dwelling on Bank Street as advertised for two specific reasons. One, the size of the home being less than 1,100 square feet. The same company owns the rental house next door, and I do not know of any improvements they have recently made to the existing home to improve it or its livability. The city owns the large lots on the other side of the proposed build and could potentially see a better development in the point by putting that land up for sale and allowing for several homes to be built of larger square footage. This would additionally allow for on-property parking and a better solution of Bank Street parking, quality not quantity. And two, the lack of parking on Bank Street is a big issue for those residents, and now we are proposing adding one or more cars to the current issue. No fire truck can get through Bank Street currently, and this is putting the cart before the horse to build and then do something about parking. We should respect our historic area and surrounds with quality housing and better amenities. Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. All right. At this time, is there a motion to approve the CUP as presented with conditions?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Councilor Pelham and seconded by Vice Mayor Gore. Any discussion? Counselor Harris, and then Counselor Joyner.
The statement that was read by
Okay.
Ms. Randolph in regards to Bank Street.
Williams?
No, the statement that was read by Ms. Randolph.
Just now.
Yeah, just now. Is it any truth to what she's saying?
Which parts?
About the fire trucks can't get down there and
I think fire trucks have more of an issue with the turning radius to getting onto Bank Street from Prince Henry. And then because of the parking situation along Bank Street, it would be because cars can park on both sides. It would be impossible for a fire engine to go down Bank Street for those two reasons. Now, staff has met with Public Works on site over there, and that occurred early in this process to talk about some options that might be available for no parking on one side or restricting parking to just one side of the street. That might make it easier for a fire engine to get through. But I don't know the status of Public Works installing the signage over there, to be honest with you.
Can they do that?
Hold on 1 second. Counselor Harris, are you finished?
no, I used to live on Bank Street.
In one of the townhomes?
Yes. And I know we could park on one side when I was living there. Of course, we never had an incident where a fire truck came while I was living there. But I was just, my concern is safety.
Sure.
A safety
sure.
issue in regards to this. Is it clear for safety?
There was a fire in one of the townhomes, but it was on the Prince Henry end, and they, of course, were able to fight it. They are from Prince Henry. And I don't want to minimize your concern. It is a real issue with fire trucks, but they can run. They have and can run hoses, but they'd have to run them from either the Prince Henry side or from the Maplewood side. They're not coming down Bank Street.
Right.
Even if they did, they couldn't make that turn onto St. James to get out back to Maplewood. That's a very tight turn.
Yeah, but that is not a real long street.
Right. There's even issues today with even garbage pickup getting through there. So it's not an unfounded concern. It is definitely a concern. But the fact that the city does own that large parcel that's vacant out front, there is opportunity to create a better situation along that street. It's just incumbent upon the city to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Counselor Joyner, Holloway, and then Pelham.
Yeah, I did want to speak to some of the comments, and one is to reinforce this issue of parking in this area. I mean, Mr. Ward can speak to the fact that I have been adamant for a decade or more about parking in that area. And the issue, there was a serious issue with the fire truck being able to make the turn earlier in the year when there was a fire. Now, those some of my concerns were minimized, but it was impossible for the truck to get all the way down. And we have discussed on numerous occasions, but nothing ever seems to happen. And with parking on Maplewood, James, and Bank. And I think it's incumbent upon Public Works and perhaps what are the safety. I think it is incumbent to have somebody report back to this council about that whole situation because it's like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and this is going back promises for years and nothing ever happens. And I think maybe this is the time to have some kind of concrete action taken. And if it does involve using that area, the land that you talked about that the city owns, to allocating that space for some parking, then maybe we need to talk about it, particularly as we look at the parking that might be necessary for Shiloh Lodge. So there are some secondary concerns, but it's a real problem when the trash truck cannot get to the cans because of the automated situation. We have a problem, and we need to do something. We can't just brush it aside. But I do support this. I think this house is great, and I will say that the property owner has done a great job on the house that they currently own, and it's charming, and it's a charming little bungalow. And as we all know, the City Point Historic District is an eclectic district. It is not full of just period houses of the 18th or 19th century. This is an early 20th century dwelling, and I think it's charming and certainly support the construction of it. But it does raise serious parking issues that I think maybe need to be addressed at this time.
All right, Councilor Holloway?
I mean, house look great and everything, but, I mean, I would make, if they can't get down there already, why we, building a property down there that's gonna only increase the issue?
Cars can get down the street.
Not the car. I'm talking about if something happened, if emergency happened, some child or anybody, elderly person, anybody, and they already can't get their fire engine down there, why are we supporting to
Is that a question of staff?
It's as simple as literally saying no parking on one side of the street. It is as simple as that. As Mr. Harris said, when he lived there, there was only parking. Now they've allowed parking on both sides of the street. It is as simple as making a couple of little sections one way and reducing parking from both sides of the street to one side of the street.
Is it possible
Point of
to
order.
add that?
What's your point of
Sorry,
order?
I interrupted.
So I just want to make sure, because, you know, it is late. I was trying to make sure staff can get their stuff done. So we haven't did a public hearing yet. We haven't put a motion on the floor. So if there's any questions of staff, so we can go to the public hearing and then go back to motion and discussion and voting.
Yeah,
No, is it other one for discussion?
I'm sorry, it is.
Just like
Yeah,
ask you, I was like,
sorry.
did we-
I lost track.
Me too.
So-
Call for the vote.
So my question is, you have, is
Call for
this the
the
same thing where you would have to start back over if we add in there the parking on one side of the street? I mean, because I would just hate for it to go dormant and something happen. I mean,
You can set it as a condition of approval, but I would caution against that because you're tying a city action to the approval of a private property applicant here.
no, I'm saying, can we make an additional motion tonight to take care of that issue? I would just hate for this to go up and then it end up.
I think
something
absolutely,
happens.
absolutely you could do that.
All right, so then I digress. I'll approve this and then we can go to that.
Yep, let's vote on the cup first. So we have a call to the vote on the floor.
Call to the vote.
Is there any objections?
I object. What is the thing you want to add to the motion?
No, we're not adding it to this motion.
No, but you can do it at one time so we can set
No,
up.
he said no. He said don't add it to this
You
because
just
if
can't
we
set it
put
as
on a private.
You can't set it as a condition.
Condition of approval is what
Right.
you can, but I was recommending.
It's just gonna be a quick,
against
easy
that.
second
Okay.
vote.
Go ahead.
All right. Roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
No.
Counselor Pelham,
Yeah.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Counselor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Okay.
Additional motion.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we direct the city manager to get with Public Works to notify whatever process it is to notify the citizens that that street will be one way at some point before this house.
It's already one way parking.
I mean, parking on one side. But, you know, go through we have a transportation board that should be looking at this stuff like this. So, I mean, activate the transportation board or get with staff to do it, something.
Yeah.
Friendly amendment to have the Transportation Safety Board to look at that entire block. That whole corridor surrounding what we know as the Maplewood Apartments and the Baltimore Road. From James, Prince Henry, Bank, and Maplewood.
You know, what staff coordinates transportation and safety? Who's the staff that's on that board?
That would be out of somebody in Public Works.
Okay, yeah, make sure that,
It's probably the director.
Friendly amendment is accepted.
Yes, ma'am.
I
Yes,
second
sir.
it. I second it.
Motion's been made by Counselor Pelham and seconded by Counselor Holloway. Any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Counselor Joyner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Mayor Parton. Mayor Parton.
Yep.
This was a motion for the actual public hearing. The motion before that was for the call for the vote, correct?
No, there was no one objected to the call to the vote, so we just went straight to the vote.
Okay, so then there was a public hearing, was the public hearing 2 was the first vote? And then this vote that we just took
Yes.
was for the amendment?
Yeah, the second vote was for staff and to go to the transportation board about looking at that whole area and reducing the parking on one side of each of the streets, basically.
All right, thank you.
Okay, public hearing number 3.
All right, third and final public hearing. Tonight's third public hearing is a rezoning request as it relates to 2610 City Point Road, also identified as parcel 0140015. The request is to change the zoning of this specific property from R2 residential, which is a medium density district, to B2 limited commercial. I'll just note, Planning Commission held a public hearing on this application on October 3rd. The applicant is Ms. Lisa Brown. This particular property is located in Ward 1. Existing zoning is R2, and the requested zoning is to B2. Is it not 1?
It's not 1.
It's 3.
I'm sorry, it's
That's
Ward
all right.
3. And all advertisements were placed in the newspaper and adjacent property owners notified. So on the left, the general location map. On the right, the specific aerial of the property map. This particular property is located again along City Point Road. It's adjacent to a church. So in R2, the allowable uses are churches, schools, and this is, of course, in addition to residential use. Churches, schools, fire and rescue squads, parks, playgrounds, member-owned recreational facilities, kindergartens, and daycare centers. In the B2, limited commercial, that particular district has 65 allowable uses that range from commercial to institutional to mixed use. Uses must have minimal impact on surrounding areas and properties when looking at rezoning. And when you look at some of those 65 allowable uses in the B2, quite a few of them would not be appropriate for this particular location at 2610 City Point. So with that, the applicant has offered the following proffers, and in the full and complete proffers were in your agenda packet. I think it was about 3 pages long, but I've tried to hit the major highlights here. The applicant has offered the following: to restrict the allowable uses permissible at the subject property. So please remember, if the rezoning is approved and the proffers are approved, the proffer runs with the land. So even if the current applicant is to sell this property down the road, the new owner is held to these same restrictions offered in proffers. Okay. So as you can see, those limited permissible uses, all of those are very low impact uses at that particular location. Any other uses that would normally be permitted in B2 but are not included as permissible uses in the proffers would not be permitted. In addition, the applicant has offered hours of operation to be from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. The one change that Planning Commission added to that is to add the word only. So operating only between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. You can see all deliveries made during regular business hours. No live music, disc jockey, dancing, billiards, or games of skill. Arcade games are not permitted. Loitering's prohibited. The applicant's already undertaken a rigorous litter campaign. She's already been cleaning up the property and cleaning up the landscaping. She's made some improvements to the building itself as well as the parking lot. No special events or charitable activities will occur outside the building. She's limited on the new sign. Illumination is not going to be permitted. You can go through all of these. But again, these are the highlights. All of these are to minimize any potential impacts on neighboring properties. Staff supports the rezoning for the following reasons. With the proffers in place, the use here is supporting or is supportive of traditional neighborhood design principles. And just as a refresher, those principles mean walkable neighborhoods where you can walk to certain amenities, whether it's a park or a church or a personal service or a restaurant. Traditional neighborhood design principles are promoted throughout the comp plan. The subject property is also located on a major collector road. The conversion of the property to residential use is unlikely. The property is, and I don't have this on here, but the property has operated under commercial use already. It's already been doing that, and it would have been not permitted by the ordinance. So I'm not sure how those particular uses were able to be in that particular location. That's an older picture of the front of the building, but just to familiarize yourself with the building itself. And again, the request applies to the building and the parking lot behind it. The department has received 1 phone call and 2 emails against the rezoning. 1 email requesting consideration of additional proffers. 1 in-person comment from a Hopewell resident in support of the rezoning, and that occurred at the Planning Commission public hearing. And then the applicant went out and obtained signatures on a petition that was also included in your agenda packet. Again, staff recommends approval of the request submitted by Ms. Brown to rezone parcel 0140015 from R2 to B2 limited commercial with the signed proffers dated September 25th, 2024, which were included in your packet. Planning Commission was the same. Those signed proffers dated the most recent date of November 25th include the amendments requested by Planning Commission. I'm available for any questions if you have any. The applicant, Ms. Brown, is also here if you have questions for her.
Councilor Holloway, Joyner, and then myself.
Why is it that, I don't think in a restaurant, all skill games and stuff I agree with, but why in the world are we prohibiting the live music or dancing, and also no special events or charitable activities? Why do we have those 2 things?
We're trying to be cognizant of impacts on the neighborhood itself, surrounding properties, the church that's adjacent. And again, these are the proffers that the applicant has signed and offered.
The church, what about a church?
There's a church that's adjacent to this
Yeah,
property.
we don't make laws based on church location, though.
Right, I mean, there's a lot of churches,
We're talking about, these, it has to do with impacts to adjacent properties. So if you don't agree with a particular proffer, you can easily strike them and say you don't want to accept it as a proffer.
Yeah, I think I don't think that needs to be there. I mean, you can limit within the hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. I really don't think that the live music, I mean, change their proffer to something like, in consideration maybe, to have a limit of the time. Is houses right there? Because I'm trying to think.
That's what we're saying.
Across the street.
Right.
It's right across the street. It's just like Carr Brothers is right in the middle of the neighborhood. Carr Brothers is right next to a whole bunch of houses.
Yeah, but they don't do special events.
Yeah, but a DJ, why can't the restaurant have a DJ?
Where are you going to put them in there?
I don't know, but a DJ should be able to go there. I think.
Exactly. Another property that is commercial, and it's only, I'm sorry, my name is Mrs. Brown, how y'all doing?
I want to thank a moment and express my sincere gratitude to the citizens and Hopewell City Council. I have worked hard to create a high-quality restaurant in this area with many renovations totaling $27,000. If anyone had any feedbacks, I have welcomed all the people in the surrounding area by getting additional petitions of all the way surrounded within the area of that restaurant, across the street, around the corner. I also own a property at 303 3rd Avenue, which is only, you got residential houses all the way around this commercial property. There's only, like right when Mr. Ward is sitting there, my commercial property is sitting there, and it does not have any restrictions. It's 32 things that you can do with that property. And then you look at this property, and there's no houses on that block, if you can see. The houses are across the street, down the street, around the street, and so forth. So I did question that as well. I'm a very responsible person. I've gone into an area, I've done total renovations to the parking lot. I've also added, built a private brick container for to cover my trash cans. I have totally improved that area down there by putting in flowers, flower beds, and anything else that you want to name. I'm very respectful about what I do. I want to bring something good to the area, which is a soul food restaurant. I've also considered that this area is a very nice area, as well as my area that's at 303 North 3rd Avenue. And I have properties right across the street that's residential. I have a house that's 5 feet from me. It's residential. There's no restrictions on that property as well, and that's more closer than this could ever be. So, and also the property at 303 North 3rd Street, if you're not familiar, is directly across the street from Davita's Dialysis. Okay. That's a very limited area, street, and very lot of restrictions in that area, but there's no restrictions on that building. So I'm trying to figure out how so many restrictions on this building down here at City Point, which is an open area. The street is open and you have a lot of traffic coming down that street. Also, this property at 2016 West City Point Road was once a small restaurant eatery before it turned into the Lions Club, and prior to that, this property was a gym with a lot of customers coming in. When I bought the building, I had like 30 customers coming a day to this property, and I had to let them know that the property had been sold to me. Okay, the parking lot has been resealed, recoated, and striped. At the time that the other company had this particular property, the parking lot wasn't striped at all, but people were parking in it, okay? So I just wanted to say that I worked very hard to be responsible about what I was trying to do down there. I've also enabled to hire someone to do deliveries so we can keep the traffic down to a minimum of how many people may be coming in to eat at this place. It's a small building. I don't think that we're going to get crazy with it, but you all are welcome to come and eat if you like. So
I have a quick question. You were mentioning the limitations here. It says proffers from the applicant. Is these proffers from the applicant based upon suggested information as far as limitations and stuff that was concerned? For instance, again, the live music, the disc jockey, and then no special events and charitable events and so forth.
Well, I've got pictures on my phone to show that a lot of the churches and the so forth commercial buildings in that area have outings all the time.
No. I was asking, what was the reason? Because it says that you suggested not to have these.
No, I haven't suggested any of the proffers. Those conditions were told to me, and I wanted to. I agreed to them because I'm under pressure. I've got $27,000 invested.
It was that way, so I don't agree to these proffers. I think it is very unnecessary and discriminatory
Yes.
So I will not agree to those. I think it is very discriminatory. And I feel like that's the only reason they were put in there. So I would not, I agree with you. I figured that it probably was kind of passed down to you. So I don't suggest that we will make that decision, especially if you have been in line with your other property as a business. To have those things is really limiting. As a small business in this city, and especially a soul food restaurant, to take out of those things, especially those things particularly match the audience that you would have as a soul food restaurant. And so I think to limit your business in that action would just limit the profit that your business can have. I still go with not having the games of skill, the billboards of games of skill. But that particular live music and disc jockey, and I will also proffer, if you have that music, that we wouldn't even need to limit the time, because I think we got a noise ordinance already, but your business will be closing at 9 o'clock. So I don't think that would affect that anyway.
No.
Okay. Counselor Joyner, myself, and then Counselor Denton.
Yeah. This particular building probably started its life as a store many years ago. I know for probably the last 50 or 60 years ago, it was used as it was a dance studio for many years. I don't have a problem. I tend to disagree. I agree with all the proffers that have been said. I think that they were appropriate for the building given its location. And I wish you great luck in the soul as a soul food restaurant, and I can appreciate. I was wondering, and maybe this isn't appropriate, but can we look at the historic status of that building, getting it as a single? It does have architectural significance. I mean, it's an old building. It has the ghost signage. I think that it might be appropriate for DHR to come down and take a look at it. It wouldn't affect anything inside or anything like that, but I think it would be when future improvements are made, or just to preserve it so that not necessarily you, but somebody else comes along and changes the exterior. I think it has enough significance to be looked at by DHR. But I think it's great that you're doing something with it. But I want to keep the proffers the way they are.
Okay. Yeah, I'm along with Counselor Joyner. I would rather see all these proffers in there. One, because the fact that it is a well-established neighborhood, and if we're talking about improving housing and taking care of our existing housing stock, the thing is, let's say that you do a bang-up job. This is a marvelous little mom and pop's restaurant. Someone wants to come by and buy it off of you, but they don't have the same vision that you have.
Right.
That's why I think these proffers are important to have in there, because they limit people behind you coming. I did submit comments to the Planning Commission, asking for an additional proffer in there, because it's something that that I myself have asked of other people that come before, asking similar projects of different scopes. And that is, would you be willing to purchase one of the cameras that would tie into the city's overall camera system? Not one of the license plate readers, but one of the actual, well, she's not paying attention. But it's one that goes with the overall city system, and that you would pay the capital upfront cost, and then the city pays the ongoing cost.
Well, I've already got cameras installed around that entire building. So
Right.
I would feel like that, with all the extra stuff that I've been asked to do, and I go around there and that stuff is not done at other establishments that is the same as commercials in that same area, I would feel that is the cost that should be to the city. If you want to install it on my building, I'm fine with it.
Right.
I have no problem with that.
But that's the thing. This has been something that's been asked, and other developers have been willing to pay as part of their conditions, and that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, well, you know, the city of Hopewell has already cost me a lot of more money than I wanted to pay out on my building. I've also been asked to not to disturb the ghost sign, but all of this is under the prophecy. I'm only agreeing to all this if this rezoning, if this happens.
Right. And I'm
So
just
if it doesn't happen, none of the restrictions will go forward. It's just that I've got to have a line, a limit somewhere where I got to say no to some of this stuff. I mean, I'm saying yes to everything that I was asked, pushing me to do this and do that, stuff that I haven't seen you all do with other buildings that's commercial. And like I made the prime example on the property at 303, it's right at Wood residential houses right at that property. And there's no restrictions on that property at all. There's no cameras on that property, there's no restrictions. I put cameras around the entire building down there. But like I said, if they want to install a camera there, I'm willing to let you use my building to do so. No one else has a camera system down there.
correct. But what I'm saying is, again, let's go with the scenario that your business does really well, and you decide that you want to sell it because you want to retire. The cameras that are on there will go with the new owner. They may be taken down. What I'm saying is this would be done. This would be maintained by the city, and this would end up going towards our crime prevention approach that we've been taking towards development.
And I agree with that, but I don't feel like I should have to pay for it. I'm still looking at thousands of dollars to still do renovations down there. Right. And my money is limited. I'm not rich. I'm not trying to be funny. My money is very limited right now. It's like I said, I just spent $27,000, and then I had to pay cash for the building. I'm not rich. I got to watch my money so I can complete what I'm doing to complete this. And a lot of stuff has been already asked of me to complete that other people. You've had 3 other businesses at that building, and none of them was asked to put a parking lot in, strike it, seal it, none of that stuff. None of them was not asked to put the handicap sign. None of them was asked to put the building cover for the trash cans. That cost me like $2,000 to do that. So none of that stuff was asked. And when I go get the building, I'm getting all this, being asked to do all this extra stuff at the cost of my own expense. And, for me to say I'll give you permission to put a camera on my building, I think that should be enough because you will get what you want. You will be able to record whatever comes in next week, whether the building, and you can put that in the profit. I'm fine with that. If you want to put that a camera will be installed on that building, and that if I ever sell the building, that they cannot do anything with the camera, they can't take it down, they can't disassemble it, I'm willing to sign that.
Okay. Councilor Denton?
I don't know if I'm addressing you or Mr. Ward, but I do agree with the proffers. I do have some reservation about a restaurant right there. I've lived here all my life, and I know that neighborhood. And I looked at the petitions, and not very many of them were people that are going to be impacted by the restaurant. These were people that came from all over the city, even Prince George, Dinwiddie. And I don't know that I don't want them to influence me on this.
Well, I have someone to speak for me that lives over there, and this one right here is all in that particular neighborhood right there.
Is that part of what you gave us?
No, this is a new one.
Oh, that's a new, then I
yeah.
don't have that.
Yes, ma'am, I can give it to you if you like
Well,
to get.
not unless all counselors would have that.
Okay.
That was not in our packet, and so I don't.
Well, Mr. Ward was nice enough to ask me to continue getting the petitions, and I knew that I needed to get some, and all of these are actually over there in that area. I didn't know other area but that area. So this is for 2 sheets of this in that area. The other sheet I had, I don't know what done with it.
Well, knowing we're getting a little late in the evening, I don't want to do that now. You might give it to Mr. Ward, and if we table this tonight or whatever we do. But I have ridden by. I know, like I say, I know the area very well. I know what has been in that building for a number of years, different things. I just have some reservations. I'll just be honest with you. And I'm sorry. I know you're will run a fabulous business.
Yes.
But I'm just not convinced that this is the right place for it. And that's my only reservation.
Okay.
So, having said that, I'm through.
Okay, Councilor Pelham, then
Yeah,
Councilor Holloway.
I would like the council to consider live music could be just a saxophone or guitar playing. It's a saxophone, it's live music. It's not just a whole band. It's like the size of the building will limit a band being there. But I don't see anything with the young lady having a saxophonist or a guitar player or something of that nature to come and entertain your guests as they eat dinner, or a pianist even. I mean, a piano is live music. So I think the live music is it is kind of it don't fit. I mean,
Staff's concern was how do you differentiate between someone playing a saxophone or a harp versus a rock band?
They close at 9 o'clock.
One is going to be much louder than the other.
Yeah, but it's 9 o'clock, and our ordinance.
We were still concerned about potential noise impacts.
But every club around here have the Anchor Room could have live.
I understand. I'm not here to
Room
argue with
Partners.
anybody. I'm just trying to explain.
And Carl Brothers.
The Anchor Room did not go through a rezoning request, and proffers are not a part of that. So, no.
No. So if they don't have those restrictions, rezoning is one thing, but if they don't have those restrictions, then I feel like we're being discriminatory.
We're not. This is all a part of a rezoning process.
Right. So
it has
downtown,
nothing. It's completely not related to Anchor Room whatsoever.
But if we're talking about concerns downtown,
what about Carl
you
Brothers?
got residents.
One at a time.
I had to pull Carl Brothers and Partners. Are they B2 same? Are they the same district?
I don't know off the top of my head what their zoning is.
It's right on Woodlawn Street, going up to McDonald's. Isn't that a B2 zone?
No, that would be. It's either a B3 or B4.
Okay. Anyway, I think we should give live at least a DJ until 9 o'clock because the ordinance for music, loud music starts at 10, I believe. Anything after 10 you can't have. And I also don't agree to no special events or charitable activities on the outside of the building, because again, she does not impact the ordinance for noise until 10 o'clock, and she's closing at 9. And those two are objected to, that they should be a part of the proffers that we eliminate.
So if, guys, in order for the sake of time, for this, if you have comments, let's save it till after the public hearing when we get a motion on the floor. But does anyone else have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, so the churches and things around them can't have these same charitable events.
Yeah, the churches over
so
there.
Mr. Ward, I asked the question since you had. what is the concern exactly? Because even like downtown, for example, the businesses have residences on top. So what specifically, when it comes to the music, whether disc jockey or live music, is the concern if these things are happening early on to the day? We're already agreeing to the 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. So the noise restrictions, the things that will bother people to make sure at a decent hour that this restaurant is closed and so forth and so on. What is the exact concern from your perspective that live music will play at this business? The church got live music too. Matter of fact,
Noise.
Yeah, right. So the church can have service that ends at 9 and 10 o'clock at night too. In the same neighborhood right across the street from her, they're going to have music and play music as well. What is the concern particularly for this?
Again, it was noise. It's noise.
During the daytime?
Noise at any time.
Why? Why is that a concern for this business and not the churches and things?
A church is going to have. I mean, I just don't see it as apples and oranges. I don't think you hear church music outside the building. I mean, my thought was.
All these citizens behind you respectfully. That's preposterous. I've been in church all my life.
As a point of order.
What's your point of order?
My point of order is respectfully. I understand there's differences of opinion. We heard your presentation. We have a public hearing. We have a person that signed up to also speak that's been waiting here all night. After the public hearing, we'll open back up for motions. And right now, this time should be asking questions. And I think questions have been asked and answers have been provided. We move forward for the public hearing, and then do the whole debate thing after the public hearing. So the council is fine. Can we move forward to the public hearing, let the person speak, and then put the motion on the floor?
Is everyone okay with that?
I agree.
All right. We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. The only one that I have signed up for tonight is Anthony Sylvester.
Good evening. I live at 109 Crescent Avenue. It's Ward 3. I've lived there for about 22 years. I'm also intimately familiar with this piece of property. Learned over the weekend that my wife actually took dance lessons from Miss Randwood. She operated it. I am in favor of the rezoning, but only with the proffers that have been attached. And I want to be clear about that. But this is a bargain and exchange process. It's because it's being rezoned that these proffers are being made. If it was zoned somewhere else, we wouldn't be talking about loud music. We wouldn't be talking about live music or events outside. So this is a bargain for exchange. The issue isn't whether or not we trust this lady. It's these proffers run with the land. And so anybody else that comes into this situation, if you change the proffers, you don't have that person in front of you. I do think it's important to protect the integrity of the community. I do question with regards to the petitions. Ms. Denton, you're absolutely right. Some of those people signed that petition because they knew it came out of the Planning Commission with those proffers attached. So and again, you've got it submitted to you with the Planning Commission's approval of those proffers. And it just strikes me as maybe a bait and switch, and all of a sudden we're going to change those proffers up when the Planning Commission, if it didn't have that proffer on there, it might have voted the other way. Now, that's your discretion to, again, take what the Planning Commission recommends to you and change it. I would urge you not to do that. I'm in support of this. I like the idea of walking 2 blocks and being able to purchase food. I think there are constraints on the physical size of the building that will prevent it from being unruly, being an unusual situation in terms of crowd size and whatnot. But again, I can't say it strongly enough. I support it based on the proffers. It's gone through a process of public hearings. Those things have been melded through in that process. I respect the Planning Commission's, the Planning Department's understanding of those. And with regards to this being where it is, again, it's not in the downtown district. People in this neighborhood bought their house understanding a certain quiet and enjoyment. And I don't think it's going to restrict her ability to make money. That's the bottom line. And frankly, if we got concerns about putting another attachment or camera up there, use the city's, the Commonwealth Attorney's got forfeiture money. The police department's got forfeiture money. Use the forfeiture money and attach it to the building. She's given you permission to put it there. I agree with her. She's done a lot of things. She invested a lot of money before she got to this process. I think that was done in good faith. I welcome her as a neighborhood. I'm looking forward to buying food for her. But again, I'm okay with it because of the proffers that are attached. And I don't think they're discriminatory. I think they're based on where this property is situated and the historical use of that neighborhood as a residential community. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Susan Oden. I live at 2703 West City Point, cat corner to the building. I don't have a problem with the restaurant. I have a problem with the zoning. Because as we said, this is in the middle, the heart of a residential place. You're rezoning it for B2. He did all the uses, great. What is the definition of B2 though? B2 is limited commercial establishment along some of the major traveled streets within the city in order to protect the existing commercial establishments presently located there to enhance these areas to attract similar type of establishments. Because of the shallowness or narrowness of the lots in these areas, only certain commercial use will be used, which will not cause an increase in traffic volume. I feel like we're setting a precedence when we start putting a commercial spot in a fully residential neighborhood. Like I said, restaurant, I have a problem. I feel like the appearance has been given that because she has made, as she said, $27,000 in improvements. I've seen it, and some of them, of course, after the planning commission. That something has been said that has guaranteed her or told her that she was going to, everything was going to go through. Because why would you invest that money before you know that you can open your doors? Whether it happened, I don't know. But I just feel we're setting a precedent because, yes, City Point Road is traveled. It's traveled by the residents in that area. When I lived on the other side of Hopewell, I did not touch City Point Road because I had no need to. It's not Winston Churchill, it's not Oak Lawn, it's not 15th, it's not 6th Avenue where you're trying to get out of the city, or 156 where you're trying to get out of the city, that no matter where you live, to get out of it in that direction, you have to travel it. So I feel that zoning itself is the wrong zoning for that area, that property, is my thing. And I would love for, I need to commend the city council on when people are sending in letters or emails, at least you guys read them. When you guys held your planning commission, the only thing was addressed was we had 2 emails and 1 letter. Didn't say whether they were for or against, didn't say what was in them or nothing. So I would hope the planning commission would take kind of some tips on that part, because I think it should be read out because it lets everybody know what was said. That's all.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Charles Bennett, Director of Economic Development and Tourism. I support this. When someone's coming into the city and putting their money and investing in a chance to provide economic activity in the city, I support it. I support the process, and I support staff's recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this topic? No? Okay. Public hearing is now closed. All right. Is there a motion on the floor to approve the rezoning request with the proffers offered by the applicant as presented tonight?
So moved.
All right. Motion's been made by Counselor Joyner and seconded by Counselor Harris. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Parton?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
No.
Counselor Pelham?
Yes.
Counselor Holloway?
As presented,
That's all.
Yes, with the note that I don't agree with those 2 properties.
Counselor Joyner?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
All right. Moving on to unfinished. Vice Mayor Gore?
I make a motion. So I was trying to poll while we're doing this other stuff to make a motion that after unfinished business, since Councilor Denton has been waiting patiently for 2 meetings, we move on to adjourn the meeting after council presentations, and remove everything else pending to this finance committee on the 17th to close out the year.
Not the, what happened else?
to do unfinished business, since she's been waiting, do the presentations for council, and move the other items to the 17th meeting to close out the year.
We gotta meet on the 17th.
Okay.
So moved. Me, second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Gore and seconded by Councilor Holloway. Is there any Is there any discussion? Think for a second.
Repeat it one more time, so I'm not-
Yeah.
To do the unfinished business, because you've been waiting. Do that tonight. Do our council presentations tonight. Move the other items to the 17th meeting to close out the year.
The other R.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
No.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Absolutely.
Counselor Joyner.
No.
Motion passes 5-2.
Okay. UB1, Dr. Manker.
Tonight, council, you have before you a policy that was requested by the city attorney to draft. She's here to answer any questions that you may have. The policy was drafted by pulling the Virginia Code together into one city policy. The city currently has the conflict of interest policy in the city's handbook, and this policy would be to expand the existing conflict of interest policy. As you take a look at the statements and read the policy throughout, the attorney has painstakingly taken each one of these policies from the Virginia Code. In the event that the city does not adopt a policy, they will have to rely on the Virginia Code. So all this does is put all the codes into one location, into one policy, where the city is adopting the policy on a local level. If the city chooses not to adopt the policy, that does not mean that the policy that is written in here doesn't exist. It still exists. It's here in the Virginia Code, and she has taken the time to identify in the Virginia Code as to where she had gotten the language from. But the conflict of interest policy is before you. I pass the floor back to the mayor to ask any questions of the city attorney and open the floor for discussion.
Okay. Vice Mayor Gore, Holloway, and then myself.
Make a motion to approve and to adopt and implement the HR the revised City of Hopewell HR conflict of interest policy.
Friendly amendment.
Gotta be second first.
Oh.
All right, should I move this along?
Okay.
We're just
So,
good.
okay. All right, so the
Second.
all right,
Thank you.
Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Gore and seconded by Councilor Pelham.
Make a friendly amendment.
Yes, go ahead.
There's a portion of that 15.2, Madam Attorney, 1512.2 that's missing out of there. I would like added into this policy.
You said 15 what?
The listed 15.2-1512.2. The additional portion that's not listed on here also states that prevents employees, including law enforcement officers, firefighters, emergency medical services personnel, and deputies, their appointees, and employees, also of local constitutional officers, from participating in activities while they're off duty on the premises of their employment.
Where,
It's not listed on here.
no, but
it's in-
I pulled up the code. Which section is that?
15.2-15.
Of their employment.
18
So,
to it.
section B, notwithstanding any contrary from provision of law. Madam Attorney, do you need me to give you my laptop to look at this? So you can have reference to what he's asking about. it's this, he wants to add this paragraph to your existing 15.
Because the employee, as is understood, cannot participate in political activities on the place of their employment. So they wouldn't even be, so for example, City Hall could be a place of employment if it's an employee. It's 1812, I believe.
Councilor Holloway, she's trying to look at the.
Okay, the code provision that the language that you want added has nothing to do with conflict of interest. It's merely defined what council's duties are.
No, I'm saying this. There will be a conflict of interest because it said the employees or employees cannot participate in that.
It's not conflict of interest. Okay, that's why it's not included. He's basically says, each employee is clearly having one. Each council basically cannot prohibit from engage or constitute from participating in political activities and all political activities of the candidate while we vote for all community and last on the purposes of that has nothing to do with constitution. That just tells council they can't participate in conflict.
No, not council. It's someone employee, so the employee cannot handle political activities on the premises of the job.
So you're saying it's already state law,
It's
and so
already state law.
it's already state law, and you're saying does it really conflict with the conflict of interest? It's already state law, that's a violation.
That doesn't have to be the policy. You can't do it anyway.
Oh, you can't do it anyway. So the clarification, Madam Attorney, is that we don't have to add it to the policy because you cannot do it anyway, correct?
Right, it's something that council cannot do, prohibited by statute anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Are you finished, Vice Mayor Ward?
No, he would have the floor, I would just try to
Oh,
help
okay, I'm
move
sorry.
the.
Okay. All right. Ms. Beverly, did you speak with the Commonwealth's attorney about this by any chance?
No.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because I spoke with him, and he said there were some concerns that he had with the policy on how he interprets a couple sections in here. And I think before passing it, I think it might be a good idea to just sit down and have a conversation with him. So that way we can try to prevent any sort of legal troubles that may end up arising from this. That's just my recommendation.
Specify which provisions you have trouble with.
Yeah, if you go down, there's sections dealing with the budget and dealing with personnel issues, dealing with salaries, healthcare. Let's see. Let me pull it up. Or Brittany, can you just roll to the next sheet? It's on the second one. It is
These come directly from the state.
Yeah, they do.
right, but I'm just saying he has some concerns about how he's interpreting them, because he's the one that ends up prosecuting this.
If they're criminal violations, but
Right.
these are not criminal.
Right. And the interpretation is different from this in the statute.
I don't have an issue with contacting him if I know what his
Okay.
concerns are.
But it's number 14. All right, where's the budgets? Okay. I think, what was it, 16? Scroll down, Brittany.
An employee
16.
elected to the city council shall not vote
Yeah.
on city's budget, pay raises, and health insurance, or any department policies that would impact officials' economic interests. Isn't that what Council Pelham was indicted for?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
She was indicted for doing that. That's why
that's
we're
all-
trying to make sure it's prohibited.
I'm just saying that's all before my time. I'm just telling you, just relaying, where he sees, some, potential, gray areas, and I think a conversation, can be had, before passing.
Point of information. You're talking about the fact of the things that could be in the gray area as far as the interpretation of the law. But there's no need for us to delay because we're actually putting law code in. Is this actual law code that you're putting up? They're not interpreting law here, correct?
No, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
That's fine. Like I said,
Put it on the record.
yeah. I'm stating it for the record, so that way I'm fully covered. And then I think it was number 17 as well for when there's issues and investigations that end up going on.
Yeah.
So.
That's the more reason, those items are the more reason a person shouldn't be, have a conflict being an employee and a city council person. Those two things you brought out are the more reason you shouldn't serve in that capacity, one or the other.
Well,
As an individual employee, you have to just make a decision. You want to be a counselor or you want to be an employee, and that's incumbent on the individual. Those two items he's concerned about just reinforce the fact that it shouldn't be there.
Okay. Vice Mayor Gore, and then Councilor Holloway.
Call for the vote, Council Hall, unless you have something else to add.
Yeah, I'd like to make clear too that these policies are put in place, but with the situation that we currently have with the elected persons coming up, they still can't even be a city council person according to our state laws and according to our ordinance. A lot of these, most of this is just readdressing some certain things, and I again reiterate to anyone out in the audience or anybody listening via media that is the law that I read earlier prohibits specifically our safety officers, medical personnel, and employees as a whole from being able to, doesn't prohibit them for running and being elected, but before they could take their seat, they would have to resign, be fired, or retire. Is that my understanding of our ordinance, Madam Attorney?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I have none further. I agree to the call for the vote.
All right. I apologize that Councilor Joyner had her light on.
That's okay. I would just like to say that the AG has already written an opinion that differs from the interpretation of our city attorney, so we have that out there. In addition, there have been recent inquiries to the AG's office that suggest that this particular ordinance is it will not stand up in court. You also have the comment that our Commonwealth's attorney made. I think it would be better for us to explore these issues before we vote to adopt it.
Okay. All right. Is your call to vote?
Can I send that call to vote right to make to ask the city attorney on clarification of that, the attorney general?
Vice Mayor Gore?
So we can get
I'll say it's
that
your
clarity.
call for the vote.
What's your question?
Madam City Attorney, can you give us the clarification that you had given us in closed session concerning the Attorney General's opinion and why his opinion did or did not attest to these specific laws? Can you give us the clarification on his opinion summarized?
Sure. I do not disagree with the Attorney General's opinion in its entirety. I only disagree with that portion of it that dealt with the particular ordinance that was, city ordinance that was under consideration, and that portion of the ordinance that required a city employee who actually won an election to either decide to remain a city employee and manage their own employees under the auspices of the city manager. And those provisions of the charter were not addressed at all in the Attorney General's opinion. When I considered them, I considered the plain language of the charter provisions and gave them their plain, ordinary, gave the words in the charter provision their plain, ordinary meaning. And when I did that, I have to conclude that the fire chief and the police chief could control their own employees, and one of the things that they could do was to say whether or not an employee could serve on council. And because of the nature of police work and of fire work and the peculiar schedules that they sometimes have, it is something that the police chief and the fire chief may consider well within their purview, and to be able to maintain, certain levels of coverage and protection. And I think the charter gives them that permission.
So it's my understanding that the Attorney General's opinion was on the actual ordinance, which hasn't been repealed, and not the decisions that we still must follow our ordinance that's currently in place, correct?
Well, the ordinance is on the books, and
Correct.
because the ordinance is on the books, it is the law, and the law should be followed.
All right, I'd like to call for the vote.
Okay. Is there any objection to the call to the vote? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
No.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham,
I'm going to accept, yeah.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
You confused me.
Counselor Joyner.
No. We don't know what this gets.
Motion passes 5-2.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Oh, you meant to vote yes.
I know the time that y'all all have been waiting for.
I see what you mean to vote yes.
Do one.
Yeah. I say, is there a motion to do the presentations on the 17th?
Yeah, respectfully, my father has surgery tomorrow. I really want to go see him.
Okay. Motion's been made by Counselor Harris. I'll second it. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Harris,
We're doing presentations next week.
Presentation.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're not closing on comments for the last week?
No.
Oh, so they're coming back next week?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes, and we'll come back.
Counselor Joyner.
Yes.
The meeting has been adjourned.
Madam Clerk, will we not do it?